Hey everybody, Danielle at D's Enlightened Edits here. Happy spooky Sunday, Sunday before Halloween. I wanted to hop on and chat with you, maybe do some live readings. So give me just a moment here to pin a comment if you are watching live or in the replay. If you are watching in the replay, hang around because we always discuss something that ends up being timeless. So even if you missed it live, hey Mr. Leo, how you doing, buddy? Happy spooky Sunday. I am doing some chatting and some live readings tonight if anyone would like one. So feel free to press the share button if you know somebody who has a burning question and wants it answered tonight. I put information in the comments. How you doing, Leo? Do you want to come on? No pressure if you're not camera ready, but if you want to come on, you could press the request button and we could talk for a little live if you would like. No pressure, just let me know. Hey boo, that's right. My shirt says, I'm here for the booze, even though I don't drink. These type of booze, always up for that. And I always have a ghostie around. It just helps that this is the season. 'Tis the season when people appreciate the ghosties around. I always have one around, even if you can't see it decorated, as you guys know. And all the ghosty decorations for Halloween or Samhain or however you like to refer to this holiday, all the ghosties always remind me of, there is an Egyptian deity, a little known deity called Medjed. And he's become very popular in Japan because of anime. In the past, I would say 10 years or so, he's become really popular in Japan and with the animation crowd. And it is because there are literally ancient pictographs and ideograms of him as a little ghostie with just his feet sticking out of his sheet. And although a lot of the ghost lore and all of that tends to try to refer to our current depiction of ghosts with these sheets, to kind of stage shows and things in Europe and more antiquated theater in the UK and such, it does, in my opinion and experience, actually stem way before that to, of course, ancient Egypt and Medjed. And it was said that Medjed was part of the House of Osiris, or Osir, if you prefer the Kemetic name, like I tend to do, but they're very widely known by their Greek names, such as Osiris. And so Medjed attended Osiris, and he was very powerful, even though he's a very cute little ghosty dude. He was said to shoot lasers out of his eyes and be a protector and show up for regeneration. And so I've been feeling him really, really strongly for things I've been going through personally in my life, and because every time I see a little ghostly decoration, to me, it's just my Egyptian brain, and it's Medjed to me. So that wanted to come through. If you are interested in such things like myself, maybe you want to look him up. He is very, very cute, like I said, but also very powerful. So all of you cuties who are powerhouses inside and feel like the world wants to underestimate you, he could possibly be one of the deities for you. Because although people underestimate him with his appearance, and it is said, by the way, that he covers his appearance that way because he was not revealing his true face and his true power to the world, but he can reveal it in his own time and in his own way. But if you are one of those people that you feel like your appearance sometimes denotes people not taking into account all that you are and all the power and wisdom that you have within you, maybe you want to check Medjed out and work with him a little bit for some extra rejuvenation. Of course, this is the season where it is shadow season here in the Northern Hemisphere, and many of us are going through periods where we are closing cycles and, ooh, to reveal our cunning, yes. You know, Leo, every time you say that, I think of how they call it in, have you seen The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix? They call one of the characters, they call her gift cunning in that, and I love it. I think of you every time I rewatch that, which during this shadow season, I do quite often for the past few years. I was resistant to this new version of Sabrina for a couple of years, and then I really just dove all in, and my Lilith loving self, which it took me a while to love and understand Lilith as well, but I love it. Aunt Zelda and Lilith, they're it for me. I love them. And even though it's not an entirely accurate or nearly accurate depiction of Lilith, she does, in my experience, enjoy the way that actress Michelle Gomez depicted her, even though it doesn't entirely fit truthfully with Lilith and her energy in the lore. The way she is depicted is a great energy match. So you may want to check that out. It helps you, in my experience, feel good about your dark side, which of course we all have, and then we choose how to use that, in my experience, during the shadow season when we're exploring our shadow side, or perhaps rebirthing, right? It is Scorpio season now, and so that helps us to get in touch with the deepest, darkest parts of us and understand that sometimes in what is perceived by others as darkness lies our greatest power, and we can choose to use that for the light, or to cultivate and replenish and rejuvenate ourselves and our own light. I always am reminded by the Great Mother that yin, in the yin yang, right, is dark for a reason, and that yin, divine feminine energy, is dark and womb-like, right? When we are in the womb, that could be easily interpreted as a period or a season of darkness, when it really is, we know from the higher perspective, a period of nurturing and preparation and growth. And so if we can choose to see our dark cycles or our dark periods or phases in life as rejuvenation and as periods of integration or periods of growth, rather than stumbling and fumbling through and keeping a possibly negative cycle going, or what's being perceived as a negative cycle going, by giving it more power in playing into the victimhood of it, or the why me of it all. If we could see it as, well, how is this for my growth, and how can I see this as a period of growth, rather than see it as a period of negatively perceived darkness. In my experience, that's when we can move through it more quickly and more positively, and not have to revisit those lessons as much. So, hey you guys, thank you for popping in. We're just chatting, but if you have a question that you would like a personalized reading on, feel free to pop that in the comments, and there's details in the pinned comment to energy exchange for a reading if you would like. But we're talking about shadow season, and of course Tuesday is Samhain or Halloween. I may go live Tuesday at some point as well, but I'm gonna try to enjoy the trick-or-treaters a little bit. I got some special things for them, and I'm gonna have some fun with the trick-or-treaters as well. But I did get a costume. Speaking of costumes, since we're just chatting while you guys come up with questions if you have any, did you know that costumes for Halloween or Samhain were originally for two purposes? Hey Candace! So costumes were originally either to be scary and scare away the darkness and the demons, etc., or they were to help you become more like the thing that you were dressing up. So it depended on you and your life circumstance at the time, and your beliefs and your wishes, but the way people dressed up back in more ancient times was usually geared to either scare away negative energies and entities, or it was to help someone become more like the thing that they were dressing like. So bear that in mind when or if you are dressing up to celebrate the holiday or to entertain your trick-or-treaters. And if it's not one of those two things for you, you may want to say a quick intention prayer so that it doesn't have to be whatever you're dressing up as. So for example, if you just learned this information that it was either to scare something away or become more like, and you don't want to play into any of those, but your costume may play into making you more like the thing you're dressing up if you do it unintentionally. Just say a quick prayer before you put that on and say, I do not wish to become this thing that I am choosing to embody for tonight. I am just having fun in the spirit of it this evening only. Let me read Leo's comment. Oh my God, I've dressed as a nun more than any other costume. That does not surprise me, my friend. But did you sing anything from Sister Act while you were dressed as a nun? Because I know you with the videos, and if you have video of that, I would like to see it. I love both of the Sister Acts. And I loved that Lauryn Hill was in the second one. I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you saw the second one, but I love Lauryn Hill's voice, so I love that she was in the second one. Okay, we have a question. Okay, PLI Canny says, hello, what happens if you choose to suppress your gifts during this life cycle? So I'm going to answer that from my experience first of what happened to me when I was doing that, because I feel like it can help some people, and then I will do more of a channeled answer personally for you as well. But for me, in this lifetime, there were moments when I was younger where I was encouraged to suppress my gifts. And every time I would do that, either to appease my family or to try to fit in, or because of fearing my own gifts, I would get sick or hurt. Now, I don't wish that upon anyone. I want to share my experience because I think this happens to more people than realize it. I would get sick or hurt if and when I was suppressing my gifts. And that was to show me, number one, to be redirected. Sometimes when we are sick or injured, higher power is trying to redirect us and our energy. Number two, for me, the things that I would get sick or hurt with were actually showing me where I was having a lot of energy flow to me, and I was not giving it an outlet. I was not being a proper conduit for it to the abilities that I had. So for example, when I was younger, around like just going into high school age, I was trying to suppress my gifts to appease my family and to fit in, and I would get a lot of information here, right? I am a claircognizant and a clairsentient, and I would get a lot of information and knowledge coming through my head chakra area, and I was not wanting to pay attention or give more energy to that. And so I got sick for a period of years, actually, with constant daily migraines because of trying to block out that energy. And once I started to accept and appreciate and utilize my gifts, then I worked through that, and I haven't struggled in that way. As an energy healer, I do see where we keep energy stuck within our body or within our quantum energy field. And if I had seen, from the outside what was going on with me then, I would have seen the blockage and cloggage of energy in that area, and that would be why I was having that pain and that issue, to get me to pay attention to and clear the energy and utilize the energy in that area. So that's what it happened for me when I wasn't using my gifts. I also got the message quite frequently whenever I tried to do some kind of normie type of work, or some muggle type of work, as a friend of mine likes to say, I would be redirected back to this, because there are other people who can do those jobs quite well, and it would fit in with their life plans and their life lessons, whereas there are not as many people who can do what I do, and none who can do it in the way that I've been trained to do it. So that redirection continually happened for me until I was more true to this. So those are my personal experiences. And to go back to your question personally, and channel just for you, in terms of if you choose to suppress your gifts during this life cycle, I love your wording on that, and people don't often realize how telling our word choices can be. And so your higher self is already speaking through you. That word suppression, right, is quite powerful. And that speaks to you knowing that you have quite a bit more power than you are currently letting yourself utilize. And for whatever your personal reasons are, just like I had my reasons when I was younger, you are choosing to suppress that. I would say, and what's coming through, I'm feeling a lot of green energy for you. Green energy speaks to the heart chakra. It also speaks to healing. And so I would see you as the potential for using your gifts for healing, whether that's as an energy healer like myself, or whether that's through another line of work. But the way that you do that work gets to be quite healing or inspiring to others in a way that heals them. And so you can choose, because you do use that word choice. You know that you have a choice. It's just that if and when we're not true to ourselves and the abilities that open up for a reason to us in this life cycle, as in others, if we are not choosing to work with them, then we're kind of constantly keeping ourselves in a state of semi-resistance. And when you have resistance, you have friction with life, things don't tend to flow as easily. So what I would ask you to consider, and what I feel your higher self is asking you to consider, is instead of choosing to suppress them, can you consider other choices to redirect them into ways that better fit with your lifestyle as it is now or as you want it to be? So that you don't have to fit the cookie cutter version of what it is to use your gifts. You don't have to use them like I'm using them or like other readers or healers you see are using them. What are the ways that you would like to use them? There are people that are gifted that work in the shops and they're the cashier, and the way that they're using their gifts makes people's days brighter, and the people that are drawn to their checkout line maybe are going through something in life. Maybe they have a conversation with you, maybe they don't, but they interact with your frequency and they receive a healing that benefits them and also allows you to allow that energy to flow through you so that you are using your gift. So I would consider, instead of continuing to choose to suppress your gifts, ask your higher self and spirit, higher power, however you see it, to help you consider the different ways that you can use your gifts and choose one of those. Obviously, it's up to you. If you feel benefit in continuing to suppress, as you're calling it, then that's your choice, and that is to be respected and valued. But if you are feeling like you are getting stagnant, like you are getting ill, or not in a great headspace because of suppressing your gifts, or feeling guilty or inauthentic, then consider different authentic ways that you can use them in the lifestyle you currently have and to help co-create more of the lifestyle that you want. And it doesn't have to look the way other people who use their gifts make it look. So I hope that helps you. If you have another question about it, feel free to pop that in the comments, or if you have something that validates that, I would love to hear it. But thank you so much for your question. And by the way, in a group reading such as this, or even if you guys are watching on the replay, pay attention to other people's questions and other people's answers, because if you are here, it could be speaking to a part of you and answering a question that you may not have even thought to ask for yourself. So always take what resonates, but leave the rest. And know that even if you didn't ask a direct question while you were here live or on the replay, you could have an answer here from your higher self as well. So keep an ear out for that. And she says, stagnant, spot on. Thanks for answering. You are very welcome, my dear. Thank you for asking. And I hope that you find more ways to enjoy that and enjoy the gifts you have so that life can be more enjoyable and more free-flowing for you. I'm going to scroll back up to Leo's comment as well. No, but I did get to sing I Will Follow Him and Hail Holy Queen solos at Mass. Good. That's enough. Salve Regina, right? Okay, Judy says, hello, are there any messages for me? Okay, questions like that are more general can be a little bit more difficult in this format. So if you're looking for big, comprehensive, but more generalized information and just whatever comes through, you guys may want to consider personal full readings. Those are available on my website, anytime. It's linked in my bio, or Damsel Designs, DAMCL Designs.com. But let's see, Judy. I have my spirit animal cards here. You guys know that I work with the spirit animals quite a lot. They answer amazing questions that are, you just wouldn't think that asking questions of a spirit animal collective, certain ones you would think, oh, what kind of answer is a spirit animal going to have for that random question? They have amazing answers, and they are such guides for us. I also do live sessions via Zoom with the spirit animals where we journey shamanically with them, and people find that so healing, so you guys may want to check that out. But because Judy had a general question, I'm feeling the spirit animals come through, and we're going to see what guide you get and what they have to say. This is interesting. So for Judy, you got the cat, and this image of the cat, these were actually painted by an artist called Susan Seddon-Boulay. These cards are the Animal Spirits Knowledge cards, if anyone is interested. I mostly am a straight channel, but when I do lives, I like to have cards around so that it's a little bit more of a back and forth interactive, and so you have some visuals. So for Judy, you got the cat, and this art is beautiful. It's based on, of course, knowing me, right? Even though I work with many pantheons, it's based on Egyptian goddess, the goddess Bast. But so having the cat come through, this really speaks to independence, magic also, and I'm feeling like a different kind of abundance for you, Judy. So while you may be working to bring in more monetary abundance, I'm actually feeling Spirit lead you to appreciating different forms of abundance and allowing the enjoyment of those to help expand your monetary abundance as well. But what Cat Spirit Animal is showing me for you is also really appreciating abundance of time, looking at your relationship with time in a different way, and learning to play with more of a time abundance and allowing some of that to serve you in self-care, self-nourishment, replenishment. Even if it doesn't seem logical to take moments of self-care and replenishment, knowing the value in that and knowing that rest can also be productive because it's a time of integration. It's a time when sometimes if we take moments of stillness and rest and paying attention to our body, we are actually preparing ourselves in our field to receive more of the things we've asked for. So we were speaking about the darkness of the mother energy and that yin energy, I think a little bit before you came in, but also the mother energy and the divine feminine energy helps us learn to balance the doing with the receiving. And so what I'm feeling as a message for you right now is learn to appreciate that cycle more and start to restructure your thoughts and your beliefs around what rest periods and self-care periods can mean, that you don't always have to be as active as a doer as you have been or as you currently believe that you should be. Because if and when you listen to your body and you take those moments of self-care and rest and replenishment, you can set the intention that allows those moments to be productive and allows those moments to be times of integration where higher power and spirit take the lead to put other things more in puzzle piece place for you around you. Whereas if you are always actively, continuously doing or thinking about or trying to do, sometimes we crowd out some of that magic and some of that energy of higher power because we don't allow them to do all the things that we may pray or ask them to do if we are so actively seeking to do. So that's the main message, is almost like if you look at these cute images of cats, or if you have cats, where you watch them rest and you watch them sleep or you watch them lay in the sun, they don't care about anything else when they're in that process, right? They are resting. They are full on in that now moment. And what that means is their body can really heal and can really regenerate and make space for them to have energy or have receive in the next moment. So that's really what I'm feeling from Cat Spirit for you, is learn more of that divine feminine receive integrative process. And in terms of abundance, also I'm feeling and getting a message more about managing abundance rather than trying to actively create abundance at this current period of time. So at least for this current zodiac period, while we're in Scorpio, it feels like more of a time of financial management rather than financial creation. It's not to say that you can't or won't create more finances during this time, but Spirit is giving a nod towards look to managing a little bit differently, and look to also seeing how moments of rest and replenishment can create for you or allow creation or receive in a different way. So I hope that that helps. That's what wanted to come through for you. And you can check out that beautiful image, or absolutely any image of cat that calls to you. You can pick out your favorite color. And the best thing that I find about spirit animals is they can continue to work with and guide us and show up for you in crazy ways. And when they show up, whether it's as an emoji, as a dream, as a logo on somebody's shirt or a billboard or something when you're out and about, you feel so loved and so connected, knowing that you have another nod from Spirit and another guidance point at that moment, even far beyond the point that you connected with them in a reading. So don't be surprised if cat starts to show up for you in other ways and you feel connected. That just means that they are continuing to work with and to guide you. And that can go through anyone who works with spirit animals, right? They will continue to show up for you, and they can help you take on more of their qualities while also helping in the realms that they tend to excel in. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have another comment. Hey guys, coming in, there's information in the pinned comment if you have a question and you would like a reading tonight for Spooky Sunday, or if you have a general question like about using your gifts or about basically anything mystical, feel free to pop that in. Judy says, thank you so much. That was helpful and definitely hit home. I'm so glad. You are very, very welcome. So how's everybody been feeling while we wait for more personalized questions? We had an eclipse, or we are currently still in the eclipse energy this weekend. It was a lunar eclipse, and today or tonight, Mercury also has lined up with Mars. So while I am not a professional astrologer, my guides do tend to use astrology to help me speak to collective events. My personal belief is that astrological events tend to act as little collective triggers that send kind of like a joint message out to as many people as possible, and that's why they tend to spark the opportunity to learn certain lessons that tend to be similar in the realms in which those planets or astrological things associate with. Let me see. We have another comment here. How do you handle the spiritual drainage of using your gifts? That is an excellent question. So that is a process and a practice for everyone. So feel free to always, like we were saying, take what resonates and leave the rest. But it is a practice. I love to say spiritual practice because it is something that you continuously need to, in my experience, practice and learn, see which aspects work for you. It's also something that you should be, in my opinion, willing to allow for your growth, because what often happens in the spiritual community, as in most other communities, we invest in learning a certain set of modalities or techniques, and they can work and work very well for us for a while. But if you are doing any type of spiritual work, I always highly recommend that you invest in yourself. You consider working with other people as well who you trust that are spiritually gifted, so you have someone to support you and hold space for you and also have that outside perspective. But most importantly, that you are interested in and invested in your own self-awareness and your healing, so that you are a clearer and purer channel when you are delivering advice to others or information and channeled messages to others. And number two, so that you know how your personal stuff is projecting into the world. You don't want to project that onto your clients. You want to use it as a point of reference and as a point of information and to be relatable, but not to have it intermingled with the energy of your clients. So spiritual drainage can happen like anything in life. You don't even have to be doing this as work, but if you are a spiritual person or an empathic person, spiritual drainage can happen because of any sort of imbalance and boundary issues. So knowing yourself and becoming more self-aware, becoming invested in your healing, your spiritual healing as well as your mental health healing, you get to establish what energy is yours, what energy is other people's. You get to understand boundaries more. And this was the biggest thing for me. When I started investing more in my mental health as well and integrating that into what I did spiritually, I really started to learn and appreciate boundaries, which I was not raised to do. And when I did that and understood more communication and physical world boundaries, it started to translate into my spiritual boundaries as well. People talk a lot about spiritual hygiene, but they don't talk very often about spiritual boundaries. And that is part of spiritual hygiene in my experience. So we are worthy of having boundaries with spirit, with higher power, with deities, with astrological events and energies. We are just not trained or taught that as a popular perspective. And if we don't have boundaries, drainage and energy leakage happens so much more frequently and more easily. And it can be hard to set a distinction between our energy and other people's energy. And it can also be hard to allow room for balanced energy exchange. So that's why even when I do live mini readings such as this, if you notice in the pinned comment, I have the information there for people who want to and can donate in exchange. And it's a great opportunity for the other people as well, because they can choose what they're able to donate in exchange for the information and for the energy at that time, rather than my traditional rates. But even in my relationships, my personal relationships, I am very aware of keeping things balanced. You start to have better communication when you have better boundaries, and you start to attract and allow way for better relationships and better energies. You tend to cycle in weeding people out for a period of time, but eventually, as you get to a higher standpoint in your healing, you have more relationships which naturally respect you and naturally respect that balance and know that every relationship, not just romantic, platonic ones especially, require a certain amount of give and take and respect. And in noticing, yes, one friend or one person may have a day where they're needing more from the other, but eventually, when you respect each other and are both invested in your self-awareness and your healing, you will replenish the other person at another time so that things are more balanced. So that can happen spiritually as well. You can do that with the energies that you work with. It's why a lot of spiritual practices have tendencies when you work with a deity or a fairy or something like that. People do offerings, right? Because that is an aspect of keeping things balanced. You are asking them for a favor or for their presence, and you are giving an offering as a form of balance so that you're not creating drainage and you're not creating more karma. Because when we do things in an imbalanced way, often we are creating more karma. It's why a lot of spiritual readers and spiritual healers, especially if we have issues around money or worthiness or receiving for our energy and our work, if they do things for free, which I used to do, or for rates that don't exactly match up to the energy in which they are extending or the expertise in which they have, you can experience more drainage because the other person is not investing at a level that replenishes you. And when that happens, the other person tends to have to redo that lesson or that information or that healing in another form down the line, because their soul, subconsciously or consciously, will not as easily integrate what you gave them, even if it was thought to be given freely, right? If it drained you and limited or potentially harmed you in the process, there creates a karma in that drainage imbalance. And so the other person will have to pay for it in some form eventually, and that's what creates more of the karma momentum. So while it is admirable and loving to want to help people and want to give things freely, I always love to consider the higher perspective and the long range, so that things are done in more of a balanced way. That can be money. It doesn't have to be. Other forms of balanced exchange can be helpful, but things tend to work out much better for both parties when things can be more balanced. So to eliminate more spiritual drainage, I know this is kind of a long form question, answer to your question rather, but that tends to go hand in hand with working on yourself, knowing your worth, establishing boundaries, and also seeing where you can better balance in doing what tends to be hard for a lot of people, in asking for and allowing for more balance from the other person, or setting limits. When I start to feel tired during a live, it's my responsibility to feel better about saying that and about pulling my energy back when I need to eliminate drainage, or allowing for those donation exchanges to replenish me. So consider how you can ask and allow for replenishment and energy exchange differently, and that will really help in terms of spiritual drainage. I know that for myself, and in charging for this work, which I've invested a lot in, physically, financially, and in all sorts of ways, being committed to this on a daily basis for decades and lifetimes, in my experience. Before I came to a better standpoint in terms of charging, I would get very drained and very sick personally in doing readings, because I was giving so much energy, so much information to people, and not demanding, not that I would be demanding, but not setting my own price point or energy exchange point at a level that actually replenished anywhere near the energy that I was extending. Now, that was on me, that was part of my personal lessons, but this does happen with my clients and other spiritual people I know as well, in terms of your number doesn't have to be anywhere near my number, or your requests, whether it be food or barter system, any other form of energy exchange, it doesn't have to match what mine is, because we're all individual, we're all unique. We all have different needs in our lives of things that will help us to feel replenished at the level in which we give. But you need to play with that and determine what amount actually helps you to feel and be replenished for what you are extending, for what you are giving. And it can, and in most cases should, come from the person or the group that you are giving to, but there are some circumstances where it doesn't have to. Maybe you feel very called to help a certain person or a certain group, and you know that they don't have it to give you. In some cases, you can open it up for exchange for that in other forms or in other ways. But the intention and the boundary setting, in my experience, does need to be done first and during, so that you are making sure that you are allowing way to replenish the energy that you are extending as well. Because you have more healing abilities, I would also say learning to work with energy coming through you and not from you can also be key, especially if you are doing healing, or if you notice that the way that you read or are using your gifts are coming through in a healing way. That's something I wish I knew a lot sooner as a wounded healer, because that could be very draining. If we are trying to use our own life force to heal other people, that can be very draining. And it is why a lot of people who are trained in Reiki, with this newer generation of initiates, tend to get sick. There's studies where Reiki masters can get sick, or in some cases pass away more quickly, because they are not aware of how much of their own life force they're using, rather than allowing higher energy to come through them. So that could be something to practice as well. Let me just read your question. Fantastic answer. Never considered setting boundaries spiritually. Maintaining balance sounds like the key. Thank you. You're very welcome. Through and not from, mind blown. Yes. Through and not from was a mind-blowing moment for me too, because we tell ourselves that we have to be responsible, right? We are the energy healer. We've been given this gift for a reason. We have this information for a reason. And then we make ourselves feel like it has to come from us. But that's just honestly, in my self-discovery and my self-healing, that's a trauma response. You know, to feel responsible for others and to feel like it has to come from us is a trauma response. And we can choose to see it in the ways where it's just as much as if even more sometimes a gift for it to come through us and to be such a cooperative healer with the universe or source or whatever you call higher power. It is still an amazing thing and it is still a gift. Hey, Maria, but we have to realize and set those boundaries and understand that that can be a way. We still have to replenish for doing that, but that can be a way where we're not as drained. And setting those boundaries, that's really what saved me in terms of I was constantly bombarded by spirit for so much of my life. And once I started healing my personal boundaries and beliefs around that, I don't get bothered like that anymore. I don't get spiritually drained by energies and entities because they sense my boundaries. And whether those are spiritual boundaries that you put in place with light and light bubbles and all those wonderful things that I do as well, and a lot of people like to do, when you have it in your belief system, in your aura, in your energy, that you have boundaries, that you respect yourself enough to have boundaries, spirit sees that and they respect that and they don't drain you. And it's a much better way to live in my experience. I see I have a request, so I'm gonna that it's loading. But yes, that's really what saved so much of my energy in having boundaries and knowing you have the right to that. Hello.
Hi, my love.
Hi, handsome. Let me make the volume louder.
It might
There.
be where my speaker is put, though.
No, it's on this when I do a live, it goes to the same volume of when I'm on a call. And
Oh,
so it was low until I made you louder. How
I've
you doing?
I've never been on the Instagram before. This is cool. This is a new cool room.
You're in the lower box, but
Hmm?
Maria is here as well. So you guys, this is Mr. Leo Rodriguez, accidental stage manager of What's the Story with Maria Gentile, who is also there. You can see she's the last one that joined this live. I've been on their show a few times. Go check them out. It is very Brady Bunch, right?
Are you Alice or am I Alice?
I don't know. I don't want to do any more cleaning, so you could be Alice.
I just came on. I was gonna come on, but then I thought, you are so awesome. Thank you for everybody that's been like getting answers, and as you're putting your energy out there, I know that you're extending your boundaries, but mwah, the work you
Yes,
do
thank
is
you.
amazing.
Thank you. I love you, and I love that Maria's here too, that she got to see you come on live. I'm sure she's enjoying her almost one night a
I,
week
try, I
that she has off.
tried to coax her. I tried to coax her, and I thought we'd ambush her.
Maria, no pressure if you're not camera ready, but I think I can invite more than one person on at a time now. I think you can have up to 4 people on Instagram Live. So if you would like, there should be that little request thing if you would like to come on. But so what are you doing? How are you celebrating Spooky Week or not?
Spooky week. I am just chilling out. I do usually stay home very quiet. I think I mentioned before my when my grandma passed, her birthday we used to celebrate her birthday on Halloween.
Okay.
But her birthday was actually on November 1st. She just forgot after so many years. So that's
Yeah.
kind of just my personal day where I end up spending. I light a candle. That's kind of like my Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
And then I have a full altar. So there's a lot of people that I celebrate for that day. I think I'm more for that than I am for the Halloween. Believe me,
Yeah.
I've had my Halloweens.
Yeah.
We won't go into those.
Yes. We, as the LGBT community, the LGBTQ plus IA, all alphabet family members, we do embrace the Halloween, which I love because, um, that's why I love the word queer, because it used to mean weird, and then we took ownership back of it. But I embrace the weird. Weirdness is power, being unique. And I love that we've kind of coordinated with this holiday. Maria says she's going to be a background person tonight, so that's fine.
What is your
Um,
favorite costume? What is your been like your most outrageous costume that you remember the most?
I haven't dressed up every year because I feel like how many people dress up as fortune tellers, right? And so I have my own costume. But when I was little, I was the Wizard of Oz more than once, definitely. Um, this year, I'm not going to give it away, but I got something that's simple that can be reworn, but does help me in that aspect of like we were talking about costumes earlier.
Hmm.
It's either something that scares away the bad or something that you want to be more like. So I got something that's more akin to how I like to be more in the world and in the universe. So I will put a picture or take some, do live potentially at some time with that. I don't know that I've gone too outrageous. I think I give myself more permission to play with makeup, like going Eye of Roz on my face instead of just
Okay.
embodying Eye of Roz. I think it does give people that permission to be more themselves or more what they want to explore for themselves. So I'm all
Hmm.
about that. And I love to see people have fun with it. I'm not really about that Mean Girls version of Halloween where, it's just the how
Yeah.
sexy can you get. That's not, I mean, if someone wants to be more like that and is actively doing that, that's fine. Do you, boo? But
Yeah.
that's that's not me. I like that it helps people tap into their creative side.
Yeah. If they're gonna do that, just wear a jacket so you're not cold.
Yeah.
I
It'll be
just
80 degrees this weekend here in New York.
That's nice. We're getting into fall up here in my mountain. The
It
leaves
was
are
cold
definitely
and
falling.
then it got hot, and now for Halloween it's going to be cold again. But I think everybody got confused.
I think in 2010, was it 2010 we had that Halloween that was like we snowed in? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, I was in New
Sometimes,
York at that point, and I
sometimes
remember that snow.
it does get quite frosty, but I don't know. We'll see. It's one of the days this week that we're supposed to have sun, so I'm hoping that for the kids. I got some unique things. People always say there's like this very church oriented belief about be careful with the candy, witches are
Oh.
putting spells on them, and I'm like, it's more of a spell of like community and blessing people and giving people joy and all of that.
I
So
would be less worried about the witches and more worried about the dentist.
yeah,
Although
yeah,
I've been putting lots of money in my mouth lately because the pre candy's out,
yeah.
so I've been down in 100,000 grand here and there.
That's good. I mean, listen, people can set intention on anything, and we can choose that and we can choose it in our power. I'm really about I've been experimenting energetically, which you guys can still ask questions, by the way, even though Leo's on. If you have a question, feel free to pop that in at any time, but we're chatting in the meantime. But I've been really experimenting with um, non-linear causality, which is very geeky and quantum
Ooh, yeah,
physicsy of me.
yeah.
Um, but you know that I love that stuff. So non-linear causality is really when you don't see a logical link between events that are happening or things that are being healed or things that are being manifested. And spiritually or from the higher picture, there is a link. It's just it doesn't make logical sense. You can, for example, do a good deed with giving out candy or feeding the birds, and that could translate into you getting a blessing that you really need. Um, so it doesn't directly seem linked. Like it's not logical that by feeding the birds you would get a bonus at work. But it's just about, it's just about different elements of how interconnected and interweaved our realities can be when we are tapped into that higher frequency way of being. And we can actually play with that in terms of setting intentions in advance. It's something that magicians or witches or magically inclined people who more orient from that way of doing things. Personally, I love the kind of middle path of blending the spirituality and what people consider magic or what people consider quantum physics. I see it no matter what you call it all breaks down to the same thing as sort of code that we're inputting, right? And if you do that code through a ritual or if you do that code through a prayer, it doesn't really matter. That's just your preferred way of sending the message or receiving the intention. So you can set an intention on things and give it your own form of meaning. You can set an intention that you have for a specific thing, and people in the magic communities mostly call it sympathetic
Mm-hmm.
magic. So this is where, for example, people do candle working, whether that's in magic work or even in traditional church, right? Almost every traditional
Right.
church, you light candles,
Mm-hmm.
and in people's altars, like you were talking about, you light candles. That's not just the act of lighting a candle. You have an intention
Right.
that
With
is set
your
for
faith
that.
and belief
Yeah,
and your energy that you're putting into
yeah.
it. I keep
And
trying to
you are
tell
sending light
it's
to your loved one, right? So you
it's
can do
about
that
the
with any.
cause and effect then, the karma, right? I mean, what
Yeah,
you're intending to put out is definitely what's going to come back. So if you're putting out the neggies and revengey stuff, then guess what's going to come back to you?
yeah,
But if you're putting out for love and affection for people without, unconditional because you're doing it for people, then that's probably what's going to come back to you if that's what you're putting out. I think I mentioned before, and you may have heard, I have this campaign for our kids. It's where I work,
okay,
and it's the Dream campaign.
yeah,
Your dreams can come true, but on each letter of the word, like we've attached other words. So kindness, karma, commitment. I'm gonna lose it now because you make me nervous.
all right.
But
Don't
karma's
be nervous.
but karma's the big one. I always tell people if you're putting out, and I tell the kids like I've been able to. You only see me on this mountain, but I've been to different places around the world and gotten to perform with opportunities that who knew this little Mexican kid from East LA was gonna, get these. But the more energy
Yeah,
you put out, and the more innocent. Now I know that there's negative, and I know that people have been negative towards me and everything, but thick skin. I think that's the acting school that kind of gave me that thick skin part of it. Because if your heart's there, if what you're putting out there, then hopefully it's going to come back to you. Now I know there's a whole bunch of other karmic webs and things like that you know
yeah,
about more than I do, um, but it's true, really, if you have that intention. And I've seen it. I've seen it with other people. We have a very good friend who's just puts out all that energy, and she just, a bringer together of people with great
yeah.
energy.
She's a
And
nex-
so,
she's a nexus point.
definitely. Yes. And it just feels so good when you're working in that, with that, and through that, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Let me just see. Yes, Jamie, I am doing readings. So ask away. There's information in the pinned comment, but you can leave it in the comment section in between Leo and I having a good chat. But yeah, and karma is an interesting thing, right? Because a lot more religious people are believing in karma, and I think that is intended because it is, in my experience, a form of momentum, and it is a way that God, Goddess, higher power uses as a kind of automated way of running the universe and a way of teaching us about ourselves, right? So that we appreciate ourselves and others, other parts of the creation, right? It can be other people, other souls, or other forms of creation, meaning the earth. A lot of people build karma with how they treat the energy of the earth. So it is an automated form of teaching us about ourselves and thus teaching us about others and higher power. So if we do something onto others, eventually, whether it's in this life or another life, we will be given an experience to learn how that felt from the other side so that we can put balance and not drainage in it. Maria's asking how you donate. If you get a reading or something that helps you in tonight's live and you would like to energy exchange for that, there are ways to donate through the second link in my bio, or you can open up another window on this or another device and go to paypal.me/DS Enlightened Edits, just like it's in my screen name. And there are opportunities where you can input your own donation amount. But you did not get a reading tonight, Miss Maria, and you do a lot. So you don't have to energy exchange for that. But it is there and it's linked. All that information, if you missed me saying it or you're not sure about the spelling or what have you, it's in the pinned comments. You can just click more and it will have all of that listed. And my website is also listed in there if you would like to expand and get a full personalized reading. Maria is a fan of the quantum session, which is on my website. That is a comprehensive session that I do where we connect you with your higher self, with your quantum field, and with your loved ones in spirit through a mediumship basis. You don't have to have a lot of loved ones in spirit to feel called to the quantum session, because we also work with your higher self and your spirit guides, so we can get you answers that are a combination of both from your own higher self and your spirit guides, as well as from loved ones in spirit. In that we can also do understanding where your energy is sitting. I have Akashic Records readings on my website as well with past life stuff, which I know Leo is a fan of. So really, I'm all about understanding you and helping you understand yourself and your energy and where it's kind of come from, the energy that has gotten you to this point, and where it is currently projecting from this point. That's the way I read people's futures. I don't cement anyone into this is what's coming through about your future and this is what's going to be. I allow you to feel like the powerful co-creator that you are, and that's really what I'm about in terms of giving you a possible projection, which is the most probable based on where your energy is sitting now. But I also believe that once you understand where your energy comes from and where it is now, you can take ownership of that and steer in a different direction if you want and so choose with the power of that information. Let me read Maria's comment. I love the quantum session. It was completely healing. Yes, thank you. I am an energy healer as well, and there's a link on my website and in my bio to apply for energy healing and quantum coaching. Those are done on individual package bases and built for your soul's needs. But everything I do, like I was speaking to our earlier questioner from tonight, everything I do, thankfully, does come through with a level of healing, and that's really what I'm about. And when I'm working in a mediumistic way, I work with you and your loved ones on the other side, and spirit tells me that it's healing for them as well, to get the messages through and have that kind of weight lifted from their spiritual shoulders and have that information come through to help you on both sides of life. So I've always worked with spirit on the other side as well. I believe when you are a medium and a healer, you are that for both sides of life. And so I've worked with thousands of spirit that I've never connected with individuals here on this side of life. But I know that it is purposeful and for a reason. And my exchange for that was the experience and the techniques that I get for that. And also being able to experience the other side, or what people refer to as the heaven realms, by astrally visiting there to help those spirits. So let me read our question. Dream It Anyway 87, I love that name, says, Aaron has moved out here, but is stuck. I have a good feeling that we are meant to be soulmates. Okay, so I have a lot of experience with soulmates and what people refer to as twin flames as well. The first thing I would say is, for you and for anyone else listening and gaining from this, is that soulmates do not have to be romantic. Not that this is associated with Aaron, but it's something to keep in mind. That soulmate term can be for any soul that you have a connection with from another lifetime and from outside this space and time lifetime. So what I'm seeing that you're getting in terms of the connection with Aaron is that you have the soulmate relationship, meaning you've had multiple lives together. I'm personally getting connection with 3 lifetimes that you've had with Aaron. And I'm seeing that this lifetime in particular was the one that was slated for the 2 of you to work through a lot of your karma. So it makes sense. Everything comes through in order. Just as when I'm doing a personalized reading for someone, the order that something comes through in is always linked in a way that spirit can see even before we can see it. So we were just talking about karma, and this lifetime really was slated as the one of the 3 that you've had where it is kind of a nexus point for the two of you to work through karma that you've experienced in other lives. And the kind of push pull and the back and forth that you've been having with Aaron is teaching you how to heal and rebalance that karma. I think the danger when someone refers to or puts the assignment of soulmate or twin flame upon a relationship is that sometimes we tend to romanticize it, and then we give excuses for things, or we get in that victim mentality sometimes of saying, but they are my soulmate, but they are my twin flame, we're meant to be. And then they don't as quickly or as clearly see the lessons to work through and end up stretching the cycle under that attachment to that meant to be. So what I would say is if you can work on, I know it's hard, especially when romance and love is involved, but if you can work on pulling back the attachment to needing things to be in a certain way because of this meant to be belief or this soulmate kind of multi-lifetime connection. If you can release some of the attachment to that and instead be in gratitude for the fact that, okay, we were meant to meet and experience relationship because we have this karma that we are meant to clear through the lessons that only love and certain type of relationship could teach us. So if you can refocus on what is this trigger teaching me at this moment about myself? This is really important because when we love someone or when we're attracted to someone, and we do feel that there's this soul connection as well, right? We tend to look at the thing, and even if we are lesson oriented, we try to figure out what it means about the other person, solve it about the other person, and that only pushes them further away because they want to and are meant to learn their own lessons. And even if we have gifts where we can see them and their lessons really clearly, the point is not to teach them their lessons. It is to use the relationship as a divine mirror to learn about ourselves. And then when you learn about and use that for yourself and work on it for yourself, you can be more of an open attractant point to them and an inspiration to them in doing the same for their own lessons. So what I would do is start to notice and not shame yourself for when you are triggered, when you are longing for Aaron, or when you are ruminating on parts of the relationship that have already happened or that come up. And instead, in that moment, say, what is this teaching me about myself? And be open for the answer. Sometimes we're not going to like the answer or like the image that comes back at us, but if you can appreciate that without shame on yourself and instead sit in gratitude, even if it's only for a few seconds of, wow, I wouldn't have seen that or learned that or accepted that about myself without Aaron's behavior teaching me that. It doesn't mean condone behavior that is disrespectful to you. It does not mean make allowance for that, but if you can sit in the place of appreciating it just for you, you don't have to tell him, and appreciating that only that in that moment would have brought up an awareness for you about yourself. And if you have commitment to working on that, what tends to happen because of the laws of the universe and the attractive of the universe is, number one, you get to heal things for yourself, which will reverberate in countless ways. Number two, you get to heal and balance more karma. And number three, you get to open that point, which was previously a point of attraction for wounding and for trauma and for those triggered responses. You get to transform that point into a positive attractant point, which means that either better version of Aaron can be attracted to that for you, or possibly, which people don't like to hear, an even more escalated person can start to be attracted to you because you have healed that wounded point in your aura, in your energy, and it makes way to have openness for a better version of Aaron or an even better version of partner than you can imagine at that moment, because we often make these agreements with each other in romantic situations to trigger one another so that we have healed the things about ourselves and given the inspiration and intention for others to be able to heal about themselves as well. So I hope that helped. I do feel that you definitely do have a multi-leveled and layered connection, but there does seem to be more triggering that's upcoming for you. So Spirit really wanted me to share that so that as the triggers come up, as the longing for and missing comes up, even without him specifically, if he does use he pronouns, even without Aaron using specific triggers with active communication, remember that not having communication can also be a trigger to teach you about yourself. Noticing when you feel the intention to reach out to him, ask yourself before you do that, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I feeling the need to do this right now? Because often those moments of separation when someone moves out, those are huge moments to either develop the spiritual connection more when not in the same space, or learn about ourselves, or both, to the point where you can see where you need validation and why, and what taught you in your life to look for and seek for validation in certain ways, because I'm sure that it reverberates more than just the romantic relationship. And if you think about it, do you want to be the one that's always reaching out? Do you want to be the one that's always prodding? Ask yourself those hard questions, because then you get to start to restructure building a better relationship, whether that's with Erin or whether that's with allowing the universe to help you create a better template for you to have more mutually beneficial relationships in the future. So in those moments, look at those triggers, and without shaming or blaming yourself for them, just appreciating that you get to observe what's coming up for you in those moments. So I hope that helped. And feel free, I'm going to repost this on replay, so feel free to listen back. Those things took me years to learn personally as well, and I've seen it with so many clients. So it is a process and it is a practice, and be gentle with yourself in that, but it can help you build better relationships.
It can be difficult, especially when you're trying to figure out what was then and what is now, and figuring out the emotional lines and trying to disconnect from that was really years ago, and I'm still feeling it now. Those are kind of hard to decipher.
Yeah, and I know you have experience with multi-life relationships, and you know it can be a thing for the person, like myself, like yourself, who is very aware of having connection outside of the current one. That is boundaries as well, right? We were talking about boundaries earlier. We often feel like if we have information, we have to make it accessible to everybody else. Ask even in that, is that actually helpful? Because I see this in spiritual people who have relationship time and time again, and I did it as well, so not shaming anyone. But sometimes we feel the need to justify our relationship now by explaining to the other person what we remember from a past life, or what we get access to in terms of remembering a past life when we trigger and meet each other. And the other person is not always open, very rarely is actually open to that. So that can be something that pushes the other person away, because they want you to know, I don't need a justification for having a relationship with you, you know, and they're trying to teach you by being repelled that you don't need to validate or justify yourself in the relationships you have now based on who you were previously. That information is to inform you, not for you to justify yourself to others. So let me just read the new comment that we have. That makes so much sense. We have grown so much more to grow. That explains why our love is so much stronger. I will look for that and heal myself as well. Our relationship is much stronger at this time. Yeah. And you know, doing that and doing that practice, and thank you for validating that, it does make the relationship stronger. And I would just say, be careful. I have a friend, Shlomo Friedman, who has a manifesting basically channel on YouTube. And he always says, you get what you tolerate. And I meet with him quite often on Zoom. He's in Canada, and he's originally from Poland and Israel, which obviously prayers. But he always reminds me of that. You get what you tolerate. And that can be something to learn from as well. What have you been tolerating and why? And not just you, to call you out in this relationship that you asked the question about, but all of us, you know, what have we been tolerating and why? And if we could find the roots of that why, then we can clear it up from the root and not need our reality or our higher power to continue to show it to us in those ways, which very often are linked to hardship. So that could be a way that you in your relationship, have a balance between what is yours to work on about yourself and what is Aaron's for them to work on within themselves, because not needing to make ourselves responsible for the other person's healing makes way for better relationship without resentment on either side. Maria says, I love that you get what you tolerate. Yeah, I love that too. He's always reminding me of that. And it is kind of a key component in how we are co-creating our life and our reality, in my experience, because we all tolerate things. And sometimes we get so used to tolerating just to make it through and to survive. We don't realize how harmful it's been and how much it is contributing to the things that we're complaining about or stressing about. And so if you could just every once in a while ask yourself, why am I tolerating this? And it doesn't mean be belligerent in ending something or, immediately go into that kind of childlike reaction instead of response, but with curiosity, like, why? Why have you been tolerating something? And how can you allow better? What can you work on within yourself to allow better from another person, from your creator, from life itself? Asking questions gives the best response in my experience. And Maria says, you have to teach people how to treat you. Yep, you do. You have to teach people how to treat you, and they pay the most attention to what you will tolerate. Consciously or unconsciously, people pay the most attention to what you will tolerate, how you will tolerate it, and why. And they will use that as an end. And this is also why when you have relationship with people of any kind, platonic especially, when you start to heal and you start to take more ownership for your stuff and start to change the way you have boundaries, the way you show up, the way you need to or want to be replenished, the people that have been in your life for a karmic reason or for a specific unhealed season, they will be the most resistant to your healing and to your change, and they will get very, very triggered when you start to show up as the more healed version of you, because they don't want to change. They were only there for that energy match to that version of you that was karmic or that was unhealed in a certain aspect. And if you heal and they want to stay in your life, that means they will have to become more respectful or more healed or more aware as well. And not everyone is about that at that phase in their life. I love my Leo's little animations. I always tell people if they listen to the podcast of What's the Story with Maria with Leo, you have to watch on YouTube or Facebook as well, because you have to see their faces.
It's two interesting ways to really gain them information. Watching is so much different than listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I watch replays, I'm like, oh, that's where I was. Oh, that's where the mouse was sticking. Oh, that's where When I'm listening, I get so into what I remember what they were saying and stuff. But yeah, you don't get to see reactions. But what you're saying is so true, and it's like what I'm going through. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then as I'm saying it, like it's continuing. That's why like you're my sister from another mister.
Yeah. I know. And it can be that way too, but remember that you don't get as many. You can get some, but you don't get as many relationships like that, like Leo is describing, that we've had that connection, or Maria as well, until you come to that place where I don't like to use the word unfortunately, but uneasily, let's say, you weed out people and you weed out previous templates and partners that you've had in relationship, which platonic mostly it happens, but it can happen with family as well. You teach people how to treat you, and when you start to treat yourself better and want to treat yourself better, sometimes the universe will ask you to release people from your life as well. And it's a hard thing, but it's really especially common with spiritual people, because when you were on the lifetime or the lifeline to be healing yourself, to be more conscious, to be more in line with clearing karma and ending karma rather than continuing to create karma, what often happens is you have a lot of groups of relationships that you will pick up, maybe have a really intense connection with very, very quickly. And then at some point you'll notice, oh, that's really feeling very different right now. Like maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, but it will start to feel very different because, especially with the way the internet connects so many people now, you can create connections very quickly with people, and the universe can connect you back with souls that you have karma with very easily without you having to, like we had to in lifetimes past, meet up in a physical location. And so what happens is spiritual people can cycle in different groups of relationship, in different soul groups, because they're like, I'm checking people off the list, man. I am checking off this karma and I'm healing this karma. And you work through relationship very quickly. And it doesn't mean you're a flaky or uncaring person, because spiritual people feel more guilty usually for this than anyone. But what often happens is you will notice it's feeling really unbalanced, and you'll be more healed. So you'll maybe invite the other person to make it more balanced. You'll start to notice you can't spend time with them in the same way like you used to, or it doesn't feel good anymore, or you feel more triggered by them or drained, even when you're doing your spiritual techniques. And then sometimes you work up to having a conversation of, hey, our relationship is feeling different, or I'm going through this right now and I need to experience relationship in a different way. And sometimes the other person will be receptive. What that usually means is you're at the point where, hey, you've paid back the karma, you've learned the lesson, you've completed the cycle with that soul. And when you make that invitation of the conversation that says, I'm feeling like things are different, or I need things to be different, and you set a boundary, sometimes the other person will have a moment of trigger, but then respond and say, okay, let's work on that. And then you can continue the relationship, but it needs to be restructured and reassigned, because previously it was only experienced through the lens of karma that you had with one another. What most often happens with myself and clients I know is the person will be triggered and will not have that rebound moment, and they will blow up at you even though you said things as carefully and concisely and as caringly as possible that you wanted to restructure a relationship. They will get very triggered. Sometimes they'll bring up other things that don't connect or that are from the past, and you will see more of their true colors in the sense of them being very committed to staying at their level of karma, and not being willing to work on the things that would need to be worked on to go to a new level with you where it is a karma-free relationship. So appreciate those people who are willing to respect the new evolutions of you, because they are fewer and far between. What that means is those are the people that are committed to their own healing and to the respect for and the space of your healing, and not needing to keep you the same person. Because what happens is we do need to mourn the version of us that we leave behind when we evolve and heal something and change. And we also need to understand that the other person or the other people that we've had relationship with may need a mourning period as well, to mourn the version of their friend or their family member or their lover that they lost in the process of you becoming more healed. Some people can do that and mourn that version and then show up for and appreciate and respect the new version of you as well. And some people are not going to be able to do that, and they're going to maybe fight you or get triggered by you or blame you for other things, and just show you that, okay, even if I don't necessarily want to, this is a relationship that wants to be released, at least this lifetime around, until and if ever that person comes back from a more healed standpoint.
I always find that those people in my life that were acknowledging and supportive always recognize it before you even say anything. They can tell, and they're like, hey, I noticed the difference, or, good job. And then, you go forward with your life or friendship, whatever it's going.
Yeah.
And the other ones tend to, I don't know, as you were talking about it, I don't know who's in my ear speaking French, but c'est la vie was coming. So let's
Yeah.
really sometimes you have to. You can't always, help the other person understand you. You have to just so well. We're at an impasse, and I'm gonna go over here, and you go over there. I love you, but
Yeah. And it can happen with love and respect, but it's not your job, like Leo was saying, to help the other people understand you. You do as much as you can, you present your truth, and you allow room for that in a safe way for you, of course. But if someone is constantly needing you to explain over and over again why you can't show up for them in the way you did, or why you need your space, then that is not someone who has healthy boundaries or is willing to respect your nuance. And it's not someone, it is someone that you need to consider. Do I want to continue to extend energy to upkeep that in my life? And that's your decision. Sometimes we do. And we keep the people in our life, but just understand, oh, this needs to have different boundaries. And I think we all have people or family members, et cetera, that, you maybe see less often, or for the holidays, or, for different things that are within different sectors of boundary. And you understand that you release the relationship that was once it becomes constraining to you and not allowing for your healing or your growth.
I just want to be free.
It is why, it's also why you feel like really good after releasing someone that you learn became toxic to you. And also remember, because someone's toxic to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to label them as toxic. They may not be toxic to anybody else. It's just that for an interacting with your energy, they could be toxic for a very specific reason, to teach you something about yourself and something about them. And so this is why, we never judge. Someone could be angel of the world to everybody else, but very toxic to their partner or to their child, and it only comes out in that one direction. And so I don't think we have to necessarily label people or cancel culture people as toxic. And we can recognize everything gets to be so individualized. They could be toxic to you, and they could be great to someone else, which is why children, multiple child families, they all experience their parents differently. One child experience narcissistic abuse, and the other child could be golden child and be fine and not see them as toxic at all. And we need to allow, I think, for more of that multi-layer of reality, because it saves us the heartache, of misunderstanding. Well, why are they good to other people and not to me? We can release that victim mentality of it and just understand it's the way it is for me for a reason, and it's only my job to understand why that is, not to explain it to everyone else.
And that goes a lot. Like, I come from a family of adoption.
Mm-hmm.
I'm adopted. My middle brother's adopted, and then my brother, well, we called it "Oops" because at the end of, he came through. My mom had a baby, which is great for her. I know that as a woman, she felt fulfilled from having that, even though it was 36 hours of labor. Anyway, but there's, you look at, and there's ways when you're growing up now as an adult, I can see, like, they love to see the way we gave them challenges in all our different ways as kids will give to their parents.
Yeah.
And but they love you differently. It's just, you handle different. You're at a different time. They're at a different stage in life when they're starting with their first children. They don't know. And now with their grandchildren and last children, like, oh, go ahead, whatever, because they've learned, you guys, skin knee's not going to be as bad, whatever. And none of us were really crazy. We weren't really jumping off roofs and stuff like that. We had our crazy moments, but we weren't that crazy.
Yeah.
But you can't, and for a while, especially in the mind of an adopted kid, where in the way that we have processed adoption, sometimes, you wonder, well, they just took me in, or there's other bad examples out there, what people put in their heads as, you're abusing me because you're not really your child, and you really didn't love me, and things like that, which you work through and you understand, hopefully, with the, I'm
Yeah.
lucky, or blessed, or however you want to look at it. My family, we went through normal stuff. So when I look back at it now and I take away the teenage angst and all that stuff, it was pretty much the same thing. I mean, they adopted me. I was theirs. I got beat up when I did bad things. I got loved. I got hugged. I got Christmas
Yeah.
surprises. Um, and then I came out to them at an early age, and that was like, I imagine then they were like, here we're trying to do a good thing, and you just give, because it was a different time. It was the 80s and 90s
Yeah.
and such.
It was like
So
a punishment, some people perceived it as a punishment.
yeah, but my brother has his challenges as well. So, but they still loved us as we were their very own. And as you get older, and as we get wiser, hopefully, then we decipher through all that stuff and understand the relationships of human beings and ourselves. And then we have our friends like Danielle who can explain the other stuff that we don't necessarily get.
Yeah. And, thank you for sharing that, because my grandmother was raised in a kind of adopted way by a gumada, like Maria would know, of her parents. And it was a different time, but she was raised and she called the woman her mother, and that was her mother. And it always happens in the way Spirit shows it to me, in a way that we are connected spiritually, and then adopted people tend to heal family patterns both kind of ways. So they're very special souls who choose to become adopted, and I do experience and believe that we plan our lives, kind of a rough mapping of experiences that we want to have before we incarnate. And Spirit's taken me through that many times on the other side, and especially through the Akashic record. We create a list of kind of lessons that we want to experience, karmas that we want to work through, souls that we want to meet again. And people that kind of sign up for the experience of adoption on an energetic level take on, well, what would it be like to have a lifetime where I am understanding and clearing karma from the family that I'm raised with, but also to a degree from the family that I have as a part of my biological standpoint. So very special souls like yourself take on the assignment of being adopted, because you are using one lifetime in a sort of double fashion to heal, from a biological thing of what's carried on through the DNA, and also understand the momentum of what's carried on through a family line that you experience and that you're raised with, even if you're not biologically a part of.
The first time I wrote about my adoption, and it was the first piece I really put out there, but it was a combination of my anger with my parents now, mostly because you didn't have the answers.
Yeah.
And also because there was things of growing up and parent-child relationship that were, my dad is a Vietnam veteran, very machismo from that, and I was growing up gay. We definitely had a couple of conflicts here, and that was a major part of it. But the name of the show was called Chosen, Chozen.
Okay.
Took me through an understanding of I'm here and I was meant to be in this family, probably more they don't see it yet. I see it now, even though I was at that, when you're young and you're saying, oh, look, I'm this, and that's when I should have shut up, like we were talking about earlier. I didn't have to tell them all the things.
Yeah.
But hey, great
But we learn.
Yeah. We do. And now, I can see where that pattern is more fulfilling later on, being the oldest and being back up here with my old elderly parents, and the things that were going on with my niece that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to me, it's like I was doing what you were saying then, but going through the healing, putting it in the show for my healing. And then the funny thing, there was a part in this when I had an argument with my dad at one point, and was washing dishes, and I had a knife behind my back, and it was one of those moments. I was a 21-year-old male. My dad was, we were having at it, and I had the knife in my hand, and what stopped me was the thought going, Menendez trial, Menendez trial, Menendez trial. If you know the Menendez. So I made that into a theatrical piece with the song about me wanting to kill my dad and talking about it. Well, guess who surprisingly shows up on my 35th birthday performance, 6 hours away traveled? My parents. Yeah.
Wow.
And they sat in the audience and watched it. So you know how you said it was a healing moment for me to get it out there? And he sat there and watched it, and our relationship, man, our relationships change over the years and over the years. But through that Chozen, that story and a couple of other ones, I realized that, yeah, I'm here for a reason. And that I'm not, adopted kids aren't just waste.
Right.
If they can get over the human part of that, we're they're gifts. They're gifts. They're little. I think, and I'm trying to help my Danielle understand this. My niece, she's here, and we're here for a reason. So that means that the spirits, the gods, the karma, whatever, there's an assignment for us. We just have to live it through and live through love. That was
Yeah.
hard.
And thank you for sharing that, because being authentic like that and sharing those moments, more people have those moments than would ever be brave enough to admit. And it also reminds me of, did you see that book that came out, I think last year, there was a Nickelodeon TV star, Jeanette McCurdy. Um,
About it, but I didn't read it.
yeah, it's very hard to read. I have the audiobook and I have like a tiny bit left, and I take like months breaks in between
Oh wow.
reading it because it's very heavy. But she has a book, I'm Glad My Mother's Dead, and that title, puts people off, but she shared about her mother's mental health struggles in that, and it's very unfortunate when people don't take responsibility for their healing, or for their feelings, or for their relationships. When someone's alive, sometimes it does create that feeling of, you know, as a medium, I see it. Sometimes people have a great longing and a great missing or a great regret for people that are passed away. And something that is not spoken about enough is that sometimes it is a relief in some instances. And I think we need to make less shame around that and more understanding around, well, why is that? Like, why is it, and what contributed to making it a relief for certain people? And how can we learn from that so that those of us who are still here don't have to make those same mistakes that make it a relief? Like we were talking about in releasing relationships before, right? There are ways to release relationships where you don't have to, it didn't have to get to a point of being so bad or so draining that then all you feel is relief when you finally stop talking to someone. Like it could be a point where you're just grateful, that you had the relationship while you did, and you respectfully release one another, and know that possibly communication could change at some point, and it would be nice, if you come together at another standpoint from more healed on both sides, but it's not a requirement or an obligation or a threat or anything like that. I think we're getting to this point because we're becoming so aware of life and lessons and kind of both sides of life, where we can have more releases, hopefully, that are respectful and that are peaceful. And the relief aspect, if and when someone passes away, doesn't have to be, oh, thank God, I'll never have to hear from them again, or they're out of my life. Like, it could be a relief aspect of, I'm glad they're out of pain, or I'm glad, we don't have to go through that difficulty of caring for them anymore because of that struggle of them being sick. It doesn't have to be relief because the person created such a scenario where that was the only way to stop them from a behavior that they weren't willing to face otherwise.
That's made me think of we don't need to kill them. We
No,
don't need to put.
we don't
No.
need to feel them. We don't need to come to that point of feeling that, although it's a very valid emotion and a human emotion to feel, especially in moments of threat. That could be something that comes up to teach you about your own fight or flight response, and it's not something, provided that you're not acting on it, it's not something to feel guilty or ashamed about if you are using it to come to a point of understanding about yourself and what got you to that extreme point, and not allow that in your life anymore. Learn.
Appreciability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, thank God they're dead. But I hope that they're learning lessons, and I'm glad that they're going to be at peace. That's what
Yeah. I
that.
mean, and this also happens like for people that carry the abandonment wound, and then they learn that a parent has passed away that chose not to have them in their life, and sometimes it could feel relief. Relief, I think, confuses people in grief, and I have a friend who is a traditional therapist and teacher in grief as well. And the way, as an energy healer, that I help people work through grief is also understanding that grief acts as an extra veil between us and the other side. And I do find that some of this element of relief is a very telling emotion. I think even when we're manifesting things, we need to be mindful of not only going into relief in terms of celebration. Because if you manifest something, or if you finally receive something that you've been waiting for a long time, like money or relationship or what have you, notice if your first reaction is relief, because that's showing you where you've been deprived for so long. And don't settle for the relief factor. You always want to go for more of what you want and need, so that you have overflow to enjoy and to share and replenish and to give to others as well. But in terms of grief, if we have or are flooded with relief when a relationship ends, whether that's through death or through relationships coming apart, like we were talking about earlier, that's supposed to teach you, in my experience, about where you've been allowing yourself and tolerating yourself to be deprived, to be neglected, to not be replenished, or where you possibly have resentment from overgiving. So notice where you have relief and ask yourself why, so that you don't have to continue to allow situations in your life that only breed the highest possibility being relief, because you want blessing. It is possible to have a relationship end or to have someone pass away and actually have gratitude on the other side of that scenario, because of knowing that the connection continues, like obviously it does in my line of work, or knowing that it can continue to bless you. So many different things there. We settle sometimes for very baseline emotions that we allow ourselves to get used to. And whether that's in grief and changing the relationship when someone's on the other side, or in changing your relationships with people on this side of life, I just want to, this is something that I've worked on for myself a lot too, and even recently to another level. I want more of us to not settle, for it having to be bad just because it's always been bad, or for even shaming ourselves into needing to feel certain things. Like, what if you hear that a loved one, God forbid, knock on some wood there, doesn't have to mean something bad? Like, what if you hear that someone passed away that you haven't had connection with in a long time? You may not feel what you would have felt if they were still actively in your life. You may still feel a level of grief, and it's worthy to allow for whatever you're feeling. But it's also good, I find, to not shame yourself and try to force yourself into a box of emotions that other people find acceptable in certain scenarios.
I appreciate it. And I know there's every family has history. Oh, this person wasn't that good. And you don't know what this person. I don't care.
Yeah.
There was aunts and uncles that I've had before that they were part of my life. So when they passed on, and that human emotion is there, I have to acknowledge it. I grieve, and I thank them. I understand they were human, and we're all human. We all make the mistakes, but that doesn't mean the time that they were here, they didn't love you, or they didn't have that experience, or as you've mentioned to me before, they're just part of the process that you needed to go through. So they were there, and hey, appreciate it.
Yeah. And you don't have to come to appreciation right away. It's also not a requirement. It's helpful and it can help you move more energy than some of the other frequencies of emotion. But it's important to allow ourselves to feel whatever we're feeling and not feel like we have to force something. Like, there are certain people that will go, and I think this is all coming up also because this week, along with Halloween and spooky season, we have All Saints Day and then All Souls Day, or Dia de los Muertos and Day of the Dead. And so a lot of people, as part of their culture and a part of their beliefs, even if it wasn't a part of their culture, will have altars up like Leo has, and I have person on my loved ones. And I didn't grow up with that. I came to it, as part of my practice. But, we have these moments where we are given opportunities to remember and honor our loved ones. And I think it's always important to remember, feel what you feel, and you don't have to force a feeling because someone's not here anymore, because someone went through something, or because someone's passing away. To not make yourself feel guilty for not feeling something in the way that other people expect you to feel it is a huge level of mastery. Because maybe one year when you're honoring your loved ones, whether that's at Dia de los Muertos or going to church and lighting a candle, whatever it is, practice for you, their birthday, what have you. Maybe one year you feel sad. Maybe the next year you feel happy and you're just thinking of all the wonderful memories, and isn't it wonderful that they're having a birthday in heaven and you get visions of them with the other loved ones. It's important, I think, to remember how multidimensional that we are and that we're so multifaceted, and it's not bad or deranged to feel a certain way, whatever way we're feeling. You're just having a different point of connection for that very different moment in your life.
I'm always guided by music. I always know that they're coming down and saying hi when a certain song comes on. Do you ever play that music roulette? Like, okay, let's see what song's gonna shuffle, and you play shuffle on whatever song, and you're like, oh, this is the meaning for it. It always happens, but if it's like Come and Get Your Love.
Yeah.
Come and get your. So when I was a little kid, and my cousins, my Nina would take us and get in the station wagon to give our parents a break, and it was my cousin Becky, Danielle, Jennifer, and myself. And we would get in the back of the car, and that song would come on, but we would mess it up. So come and get your lunch. And we would sing it to the top of our lungs. So whenever that song comes on, I know my Nina's with me.
Yeah.
I know she's saying hi.
Yeah, and I love that. And I've worked with the dying as well, who were aware that they were dying. And when I do that, I love to help people prepare by actively choosing signs like that to give their loved ones. So, and you don't have to be actively dying, but just the same way as people now are more familiar with like talking about your wishes, so that when that moment comes, it's all planned. You can have this conversation with your loved ones at any time. And because more of us are being aware of how we're multidimensional and, how we can astral travel and kind of bilocate sometimes consciousness and all things that we could do, you don't necessarily have to wait to that moment of passing away to have a sign between loved ones. You can have a sign, and it could be the higher self of your loved one using that to send a message. So the earlier you have a conversation of what you would like to be your signs in spirit, the sooner that you can play with that. And when I work it with the actively dying, I find that it helps because I do a lot of research in the conscious and the unconscious and subconscious mind as well, and how all of that interplays. And I've found that when I do this practice with people, it's a preparation for the passing, where you set the signs and talk about them before the passing actually occurs. Those people tend to have better results with receiving signs and messages, because their subconscious, the people that are still living, their subconscious more readily accepts it when the signs occur, because they already had the conversation before the person passed away. Whereas if it happens after, it can still happen frequently, the person can accept it, but let's say they have to come to someone like me to have validation first about the sign, to really get it into their subconscious that it has validity before they will accept it and have it actively happen as a way to continue the relationship from one side of life to the other. So both ways are valid. It absolutely happens both ways. You don't necessarily need someone like me, but if you're not working with someone who validates it as a kind of go-between, it tends to take several more times of it happening in order for you to believe it and accept it, so that in that moment when it happens again, you have a nice moment with your loved one that they are still relating to you. So I love to, just to give you guys who are watching live or on the replay my little secrets here, I love to help people choose a song. Is very, very helpful because Spirit loves to talk through music and it speaks to a different part of our brain. It's also helpful to choose a number. Usually between 1 and 59 is the best, because number 1, birthdays can fall into that if the person is attached to their birthday. But number 2, those numbers can show up on a clock. So within any hour of the day, if you choose a number between 1 and 59, that could show up any hour of the day that your loved one needs to and wants to send a message to you. And it can show up in license plates. It doesn't have to be on a clock. Anywhere that you see that number and it just draws your attention, you can know that it's your loved one pointing you in that direction at that moment.
Hey, Grandma, it can show up on my lottery tickets.
Yeah, know, right? And in addition to numbers, I love to help people have an animal representative as well, because I love my spirit animal medicine. And also, because of the way grief works with the extra veil that it creates around our heart and around our perception, there are some people who it breaks my heart sometimes to do session for them because they're like, my loved one is not showing up for me. I talk to them all the time, and I had a dream of them once or experienced them once, like right after the funeral, and then I never heard from them again. And the loved one in spirit will tell me, no, I'm there. I'm coming, I'm there. It's just,
Oh,
yeah, it's just that the person is so much still in their grief that they're not able to access it. So when I help people work with or choose an animal representative, um, having the animal come through as the image instead of the image of their loved one tends to bypass that grief system that would automatically block it because we don't have that grief associated with the animal. So
uh,
having,
that,
yeah, so, and it also enables spirit animal guides work as how most people believe angels to work. Very similar, just a different collective. And so having an animal representative can also help the loved one in spirit on the other side and help us here if qualities are helpful from that particular animal as well. So it's just an extra layer of support and an extra layer of love. And if you choose to have an animal representative before you pass away and discuss that with your people, if they are also spiritually and sign oriented inclined, there is the potential, which I haven't really spoken about on live before ever, I don't think, to send messages to your loved ones on this side of life too, even though you're still on this side of life, because you can send it through your higher self to their higher self. So we can actually communicate and send signs to one another in different ways without having to have that veil and barrier of being passed away.
and animals are so intuitive and magical in their own right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wow. I was here for the news release.
Yeah, I know. That was good because somebody needed to hear that, and I think it's going to speak to somebody on the replay in terms of sending messages to one another and also being receptive. It can also help in those moments where, like the person who asked earlier about that kind of soulmate connection. I did a lot of work. I was a twin flame identified for so much of my life, and I did a lot of work with twin flames from all over the world. And I still do, on occasion I have a program and a system of helping people understand the template of that experience and not get trapped in needing it to be a certain way that's been identified for so long. And I have a program that I've run several times about that. I'm working on kind of reestablishing it in another form. But that type of relationship is so intimate and so spiritual and often does have those moments like the person earlier spoke about in terms of someone moving out or being physically in separate locations. And that type of relationship really teaches people what is going on in terms of energetic connection, because often the energetic connection will be stronger during those parts and more developed during those parts of relationship where the people are physically separated. Um, and it's not necessarily, it can be to get people back together in the physical, but it's not always necessarily that. Some people sign up for that experience so that they can learn what it is to have that type of relationship which connects spiritually and sends messages spiritually even when people are still alive but not in communication because of other barriers.
How many soulmates do you think we have, Danielle? Like, I know that. I mean, I'm sure that there's a infinite amount of number depending on your connections. But what is? I mean, everyone has one, right? Should have at least one. I believe. I guess maybe.
Yes, well, even if it's your first go around in life, um, which is very rare, but it does happen, you would have soulmates in terms of being part of a soul group, meaning that you're connected to a big group of souls on the other side and in kind of the heavenly realms. So we can have infinite number of kind of platonic soulmates, meaning they're just souls that we've had other experiences with. Perhaps we have karma with them. Perhaps we signed up to be family with them in multiple lifetimes and switching the roles. In terms of romantic soulmates, as part of that program that I created, Twin Flame Templates, which is still on my website. You can sign up for the wait list for the next time it comes. It's marked as sold out because it's not active right now, but there's a wait list thing if anyone's hearing this and interested, and you'll get an alert when I put the next iteration out. But in terms of that type of soulmate, where it's so much about divine love and, you know, connection romantically and multi-layered, I was shown through rebuilding this templated experience that it kind of acts like a wheel, where this is why people can experience more than one of those in a certain lifetime, that if one partner chooses not to continue to go forward in that connection, or if a cycle naturally completes itself, it is possible for us to like switch to the next frequency, and then we have the next aligned match that comes in that can be just as deep, if not deeper, of a romantic soulful connection, because we've done the work to switch our frequency and come to that more healed standpoint. So everyone does have at least one. Some people believe there is only one. I personally believe that will depend, and have experienced that will depend on how invested you are in that lifetime and how capable you are in that lifetime of healing and expanding your consciousness. Because when you do that, as you continue to heal things, you can switch your frequency. And so you're going to be a match to different levels and layers of soulmate. And so sometimes people stay kind of within a baseline range, and everyone grows at different rates. So what traditionally happens with couples that stay together for a long time is they're both growing, and then maybe one stays stagnant for a little while and one goes up here, but there's still a match like right over here in that interspace, and then the other one grows, you know, when it goes in cycles, and they still remain within a range of matches within that lifetime. But there are people that will just grow so much, and then they'll just come across someone with a whole new frequency match to them, and they'll realize that it can go just as deep and have multiple lives and multiple lessons. And it happens also with soulmates that have very deep connection, and you see in their life it becomes very much about the children that they bring into the world, or that they adopt into their relationship, and how much that deep love was necessary to allow for the space to bring in or raise those children. And then once those children get to a certain age, the couple's relationship may change, and they still love and respect each other, but it really was so much that love was for the purpose of, yes, themselves and each other, but also for the agreement for those young souls. And then they don't have to give up on love. One of those people or both of those people can end up with not truer soulmates, but different version and different levels of divine partners.
Wow. When a couple stays together a very long time, and maybe dementia or Alzheimer's takes place,
Yeah.
how does that, do you think, I wonder, affect the growth?
Yeah. So that tends to happen, and that happened with my grandparents as well. And I noticed it and I lived it because I was a caretaker for them too. It allows for the one who doesn't have dementia or Alzheimer's to be really tested in their lessons of patience, in their lessons of unconditional love, you know, in remembering or recognizing or honoring why they loved this person, and how they're going to continue to respect and love this person even as they change and become less than themselves. And the person who's going through dementia or Alzheimer's is usually, in my experience, someone who had no other way or accepted no other way of healing their own stuff or their own family ancestral karma. And so the disease of Alzheimer's or dementia will step forward as that healer, or as that breaker down of the patterns and as the tough things.
Wow.
Now, thankfully, I believe we are going to see this less and less, because even though the toxins and the medical things tell us to expect it more, I do believe we're going to start to see it less, because of the number of people who are invested in their self-awareness and their self-healing and therapy. whereas our previous generations did not have or utilize the opportunity for that. And I really have seen energetically that there's a strong correlation between being able to recognize and work through and process your emotions and that level of healing the self and the ancestral line, and having diseases like that. Because the souls that I know, I was a caretaker for multiple family members, also for a romantic ex of mine, who had a family member with that, and for clients. And I've seen it time and time again. They were healing themselves and their ancestral lines, but in a different way, where they needed their body to do it for them because they didn't take the opportunity to do it consciously or energetically. So whereas now we're doing it through the consciousness, we're doing it through therapy work, through self-awareness, and we don't need to be as dependent on our bodies to do that clearing for us.
Those traumatic experiences that we don't talk about, that
Yeah.
that the great generation said, all right, walk it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can.
And we also have to be aware and responsible for the fact that if we have loved ones that did not allow themselves to be seen or healed or aware of those things, up to 13 generations can carry ancestral trauma. And this is scientifically being proven now as well, thanks to research on families who were victims of Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, and even family members that were never raised in those countries and in those areas. The relatives here will still carry the same turned on epigenetic genes of trauma response as their loved ones who experienced that. So that's where ancestral healing really comes into play, in terms of, yes, take responsibility for yourself and for your energy and for what triggers you and why. But if you can't figure it out based on yourself, it may also be time to ask, well, what element of this is from my family or from something that I'm carrying within my genes, making me predisposed to experience or allow certain triggers. Now, as an energy healer and Akashic person, I will tell you that we don't go into a family unless we have some kind of energetic match to that. So it's not to put all the responsibility on the family, which, sometimes you get in that role with your ancestors where you're like, why do I have all the things? Why do I have all the diseases? Why do I have all the things to heal from the family? And it could be a very I've been in that place, but it could be a very victim-oriented place to be until you realize, okay, well, this has to have some correlation to a past life of mine or something as well. So I'm not just healing it for the family, it gets to be a healing for the body, for the family, but also for another element of myself that I may not be aware of or remembering right now. And it's a better, in my experience, healthier way to look at it.
Wow.
And you are a master that you do it for your body line of the family, but also for, the culture of the family that you were chosen by and that you energetically chose.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That also makes a lot of sense because I feel that it was revealed to me more and more. Like the more and more shamanic work came to me, or shamanic readings and things like that, and perchance performing in Arizona and New Mexico and going into, which I didn't find out till afterwards. Thank you, Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
That's pretty my native land, where my soul probably or person had been barefoot walking before, celebrating, especially in Sedona. I was very connected there in walking, not so much where the vortexes were, but in the canyons. Well, I'm sure there were more out there, but where the ceremonies took place, I was drawn to hiking there.
Yeah.
And then in New Mexico, Chocolate Canyon, just being energized, sitting that energy and understanding more a little bit about myself, about like, okay, this feels really good and natural. And then the books and the readings start coming, and I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah. And everything will make sense eventually. It's just the gift of awareness and being spiritually committed, right? That we get to figure out more things sooner. And it doesn't make us better than anyone else, but it helps us with our experience, because it allows you to really invest in why you are drawn to those things. It helps you understand those feelings so that you can recognize them more quickly the next time around and not need to wait for the validation to honor when you get a feeling like that. So whereas you have that experience, maybe when you go to another location and pick up on that same type of energy and that feeling again, you'll trust it more quickly now the next time around, and you won't need to wait to do research before you trust and invest in that sign that you're getting.
You say that, and there are places that, I performed in Egypt too, which was also one of those different from the shamanic in Chaco Canyon, but the energy was still like, hey, this energy over here is kind of like that one over there. So click. And then also in Galway, around in Ireland. So, and then also in Cyprus. But that's our stories. Those are
No, I love it because it helps people understand from your experience as well. So thank you for sharing, because I mean, we've talked about that, but that is, you're sharing it with other people too now. And so in my work also, I help people understand something called soul loss, where we kind of separate sometimes a part of our consciousness and it gets attached or anchored in different timelines or in different locations, even sometimes even with people, like when we give our heart away to a person. And so soul loss, in my energy healing packages, I shamanically do soul retrievals with people to help them retrieve those parts that are lost. But that is something that can happen naturally, like it happened to you when you visited those locations. That is a natural way that you were performing, or your higher self was performing on with you, an element of soul retrieval. And so you were in those moments not only, in my opinion, experiencing and recognizing your ancestors, but you were receiving back portions of your soul that was resonant and anchored to those locations, and that's why you're drawn there. And this happens with people who get very obsessed with certain time periods of history or certain areas of the world, even if they've never been there, because now, even up to a few generations back, you could get obsessed with places based on books or libraries, even before we had the internet and television and other things. This happened a lot in the UK when the UK became very obsessed with Egypt, right? And started pillaging all of our graves and locations, which was not very beneficial. But this was an example in my experience, as I've been shown it, an example where a lot of those people were waking up to elements of reincarnation and of soul loss in that area of the world, and they became like obsessive about retrieving it. But they didn't know at that point how to do it so much spiritually, and so they ended up doing it very physically, with like needing to get all the items from the tombs and the very nouveau riche, putting mummies in their homes and all sorts of things like that, which I would not recommend. Do not disturb. Do not disturb energies that you don't know who you're playing with. But
I have a story. I have a good story for you.
Yeah.
About well, so coincidentally, before I went to Egypt to perform, which somebody reached out to call me and invited me to come to do the performance. I was as a production assistant at the turn of the century, 1999, 2000. And I was working on Opening the Lost Tombs live from Egypt. It was with Maury Povich, and he was the host. Now, I didn't get to go to Egypt, but I worked on all the shows and everything and learned all about it, and learned about the tellings of the face on Mars and Sedona and the whole connection, and about the curse that came out of the first discovery that they had gone into. So I was working with a very I don't know, I want to use not so negative a word, but she was a producer who was very on the ladder, and she liked to use her power on the ladder. And there was one moment, I'll give you an assistance, that I was a PA for lunch. I'd go around and get the lunch orders, and she had forgotten her wallet. She mentioned out loud, and I said to her, well, I have some money, I can spot you. She's the executive producer, whatever. And she, oh, an executive producer taking money from a production assistant, who would ever do that? So like, girl, whatever. Anyway, everybody goes to Egypt, right? They come back, we're in post-production. The only person to get some black stuff on her lung after going into that was this one person. And I was like, girl, you're going to take care of you. Yeah. Especially in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like, the only one though out of like a production team of like 10. That's where I got to know the nephew and got to meet Zahi Hawass, who is the
Yeah.
captain of all the Egyptian things and the billboards that are there. I
Yeah.
love his act. And then, go forth, I got called to Egypt to do that. But that was a negatory when they went in there, not for whatever reasons of disrespect that they were taking things out because of gold or whatever. They got their curse then, and somebody else, I feel, wasn't appreciative as well, and she got her little curse there too. So,
And it's interesting because so I work a lot with different pantheons, and probably people can tell based on what I'm posting, it correlates to different things that I'm working through for myself or clients, which one tends to be calling more. But I really love having a big toolkit and a vast array of relationships. I think for
it makes
me,
it accessible to everybody to help
yeah,
them.
it's more important, I think, for me too than the average person because just I work with a lot of different types of people, so it opens up opportunities for them as well. But Egypt always has had a big piece of my heart, and I have a story where when I was young, um, so I'm on Long Island. I was born and raised on Long Island in this lifetime, and so there's a Gold Coast mansion, they call it,
Mm.
the Vanderbilt Mansion Museum, and they were collectors of objects from Egypt and all over the world. And they do school trips. Like they turned it into a museum decades ago, and so they do school field trips and things. And so I went there. I think it was probably second grade, which for my European friends and followers is about 9 years old. And we went there, and they have a little like thing that they gave us, this wooden block, and we sit with the sarcophagus that they collected there, and they teach you how to like write your name in hieroglyphs. Now, they gave me this. I was sitting next to that mummy, and they had like lunch tables out for us to color our names and whatnot. I froze. I could not pass my first letter of my name because I was just sitting there, and I was just like, memories like
Oh
flooding
wow!
back. And then I also felt bad for the mummy. I was like apologetic that they brought him here and had him, in this foreign land for no reason and disturbed his duat afterlife experience. And I just was reading like the hieroglyphs, and it was just very much a part of
Wow!
who I was. And it's been very strong since then. It comes in kind of waves and layers and different points of connection. I have a good friend who's in Egypt now with his husband for the whole month, and he, geeks out and sends me things, and he's the one who he creates those healing cards. But it's very linked to me. Like even my grandmother, when she passed over, she came through energetically with one of my Egyptian deities, like, and
Really?
visited me with them. She also brought through Ganesh, Hindu deity,
Wow!
to me. Even though my grandmother was very Catholic, she brought them through, and she was immediately from the other side in recognition once I crossed her over and she was on the other side, which I think we talked about and how I did that through the library. But once I had her in that space and she would visit me, she was immediately in recognition, like these are all the same energy. They just come through a different form for a different purpose, but they're all the same energy of creation and love. And that really helped me also appreciate and understand my connections more with those points of higher consciousness, because of that. And it was an element, like, you don't have to go to these parts of the world like Leo has been blessed to do to have that element of natural soul retrieval with connections that you have from other parts of the world. You can do that through someone like myself, obviously, but also through, like I did. That was an element of soul retrieval for me when I had that, when I was a young girl and on that school trip. Like I retrieved a part of my soul that needed that moment of trigger to be around something that was from that part of my soul's homeland, even though my body is not related in this life, to have that connection. So trust the ways that that comes through for you, but also be aware of where you have obsession. Obsession is leading you to notice where you have a soul loss. It's never leading you to continue. When you're obsessive, you're not in ownership or worthiness or power with something. You're constantly seeking to fill a need, like addiction. And that means that space is open and empty, like when you have an addiction and you're just constantly feeding it. So pay attention to the differences in that. You're not currently retrieved or integrated if you're still obsessing about something. So that's something actually to work on and to find balance, so you're not constantly seeking to have that thing in your life. So I want to read Maria's comment. Gene Simpson Dunn's husband, Chris Dunn, is an expert on Egypt. You could talk for hours. I'm sure we could.
When I was there, we went to the Temple of Karnak, and we were, we were getting a tour around, and he was going over the other stuff, and I'm like, okay. I want to know about the ceremonies. I want to know about the religion. Tell me about that stuff. He's like, oh, you're asking questions. I'm like, I don't care what all the history. I know that part. Give me the goods. Give me the goods. He wouldn't give me though.
Yeah.
But didn't you say that? I didn't. Now that you say it, I realize that as I was like collecting Pokemon, I ended up being in these places, and I got my Pokemon, my Chaco Canyon, my Anasazi heritage, my Sedona connections in the vortex, and understanding those. Egypt, Ireland, Cyprus, and then as we talked about, my Akashic librarian.
Yeah.
I think that's where we really tied up there. I think that's where we really after you told me that, I was thinking in that moment, that's when I opened the door for that, and he went, and that's when we got attached. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah. And, it happens in all kinds of ways. Like, it's so funny because my friend was just telling me about the ceremonies that they're doing while they're in Egypt again, and how much she already, because he's a shaman as well, and a healer too, and he already did and knew so much of the ceremonies and the rituals. So we really can do that anywhere. If you're very drawn to and blessed with the opportunity to go to these places, that's wonderful and very purposeful for you. But also don't cut yourself short in thinking that you have to wait for those
Oh yeah,
opportunities.
none of these places, and that's what makes me feel it stronger even now, is that I didn't sign up for any of these. It wasn't like I said I'm going there because I have to. I truly feel that in the magical, that in all of these experiences in life general, but that I've had, that spirit has been saying, "No, come here, don't know where you are, just come here," and there you go, and
And
the
don't
coins
worry
go ding, ding.
about the how either, right? Let's say you actively did seek to go to those places. Sometimes it gets pushed further away if we're very obsessed with the how, and kind of inner intention. It's called in something called reality transurfing, which I've also studied.
Mm-hmm.
When you do something from inner intention, it means that you are fighting for the ways to make it happen and to make it work. Whereas if it's from outer intention, you're more in trust that you select it as the thing that you want to manifest or that you want to have happen, but you are releasing the rest of the responsibility of that to your higher self or your higher power, in allowing it to come together in whatever optimal way, even if it's completely outside of the space of your realm of imagination.
Yeah, those feel cool. I like those moments.
Yeah.
Because when you feel, like moments like now, or we've had them before, I've had them on my own, you're like, oh, that aha moment. And it
Yeah.
can be later, right? It can be years later, but it's the realization, like, so that's what you were, spirit, you.
Yeah. No, and it could even happen where relationships, like it can happen with relationships years after you're not even in contact with the person anymore, and it just finally clicks for you. Oh, that's why it had to happen that way. Like it finally makes sense. Sometimes when we're struggling through something, especially, it helps to release the attachment and surrender and saying, well, I don't know what it's going to make sense for, but I know it's going to make sense for something. So I'll be happy and grateful when whatever this crap is that's happening now finally makes sense in the future. And then if there's a reason for it, we tend to accept and move through it more quickly. Whereas if in that moment we're struggling to find the reason just to have something to hold on to, that's when we're more prolonging our own suffering.
Yeah, we just have to breathe, kind of breathe and trust.
Yeah. Like Lucy Arnaz, which is the daughter of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
I've been binging her all day, Lucille Ball.
Really? Okay, so that makes sense.
A little bit, yeah.
But I love her too, and she's by you. She's in Palm Springs all the time.
Is she?
Yeah, she performs a lot in Palm Springs. I think they live there, somewhere around there. But she talks about, there's a great interview, I think it's still on YouTube, where it's just like a clip where she talks about her dad's advice to her. When you don't know what to do nothing. And it's so true, because sometimes when we don't know what to do, we grasp at straws and we just try to do all the things, and then nothing's working and we get more frustrated. And really, those are the moments when God is like, you don't know what to do for a reason. Can you pause? Can you stand still for a minute so that I could put things in place around you?
And I've had one of those moments, and when God definitely was like, yeah, and it was such a cool realization. This was years ago, but it was such a cool, like, happy, cry through realization, and then was sent birds to sing around me. It was just, I like those moments. They're hard sometimes.
They're hard, yeah. I mean,
Hard.
it doesn't mean that they're easy, but that is to teach us where we have so much attachment to control, also, and where we have issue with trust and with faith and with receiving also, because a lot of us, I've carried this wound too, and it comes in layers with healing, in my experience, where if we're not actively doing something, it's hard for us to imagine receiving for it, or if we're not playing a part in something in a way that we understand, it's hard for us to imagine it actually working out. And all of that is trauma response. It's all based on our past trauma of being forced into roles of needing to be the one to do, maybe when other people or our parents or caretakers wouldn't or weren't capable of doing, or of undealt with or unprocessed trauma of the things that didn't work out. And so then having that control mechanism response of being to force something through in order to be heard or in order to have it happen. And if we can realize more where things are coming from, which is something that I do in the energy healing, to disentangle and understand the roots of those beliefs, then when new things come up, we can more quickly move through them and have more grace with ourselves in those moments. So that, because we're never going to come to a point, in my experience, where we have moments in life where we just don't have to learn anymore, or we don't have to, have moments of receiving and pause and integration. And then, there are always going to be moments when you continue to evolve where you're not going to know what is happening in that moment, no matter how gifted and connected you are, because you are moving to a level that you've never been at before. And it's completely new territory. And you have to leave and release as much of the old levels and layers behind before you can really encompass the new level. And a lot of people, we get trapped in that in between transition phase because we don't recognize what needs to be released, what needs to be surrendered, what needs to be grieved and mourned about what we're leaving behind. Even if we're moving to a new level of all good things compared to what we've been, we can still have a period where we need to mourn, or where our body system needs time to catch up, our nervous system needs time to catch up with the new thing. And so we could be really excited, and then we could have like a crash where it feels bad. It's important to not assign meaning to those moments preemptively, because sometimes your body needs to have a moment where it feels bad. It doesn't mean that bad things are coming like we've been trained to think. It could mean I need a day where I'm feeling bad to release all the bad that's already been.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And sometimes it comes out in different way.
Yeah.
I'm a almost 54-year-old male, and I cry. it just happens sometimes, you know. The
Yeah.
commercial will trick it, or I tell you, I watched that Hazel program. One of those sappy old 1950s themes come out like, "Oh, Hazel," you know. And I'm releasing things, but
Yeah.
it just comes.
Well, that could be a form of sympathetic magic as well, which is something that people do in um, chaos magic, where they will watch something or play a video game that's very linked in with the emotion that they know that they need to feel or that they need to clear. And it's a kind of way of making it more approachable to process or work through certain emotions. Like if someone has a lot of difficulty working through anger in a situation that they're having in physical life, they may do well with tapping into and allowing their anger in like a video game that brings up anger, for example, and working with watching something sad, like, that brings up that crying, triggering purge emotion, could be a way to make it more approachable for you to work through your things rather than face them all head on. Because depending on where our nervous system is, sometimes that could be too overwhelming to sit down and like, I'm going to journal about the sad thing that I went through, which can be very valid and helpful. But sometimes if we're forcing it, it can be more traumatic than helpful healing purge. And so if you can have moments where you integrate something that's not as connected to your experience, but still helps you feel and work through the same emotion, it could be a way of gently easing into the processing of those emotions.
Do you have a movie? Do you have a movie that you use that for?
Um, I don't know, not all the
Yeah,
time. I think it depends. It's not only one. Um,
yeah, it's never
I do random harvest a lot with Greer
okay.
Gartham. Um, that one I've done a lot for, interestingly, not only romantic purging and healing connections, but also because I've always remembered my past lives and remember more of them all the time in doing the work that I do, because you remember them when they're relevant to people. They integrate in the order that you need to.
Uh-huh.
But as someone who remembers the past life connection that I have with multiple people, romantic and not, that movie Random Harvest really speaks to me because, not to give it away, but it's almost 100 years old, the movie, so little spoiler alert. Um, she has a moment where, for very this life reasons, her romantic partner forgets who she is, but she still has to be in his life.
Mm.
Uh, and for me, that really spoke to how I was re-engaging with people that I knew I had past lives with, um, even though they didn't know who I was. And I didn't, I knew that it was not right for me to actively share with them who I was, because you need to have relationship based on now.
Yeah.
And I would never disrespect someone else's experience by forcing my truth on them in a way that was not helpful to their truth as well. So I don't recommend people share that they know they have past lives with other people unless you've done your due diligence in checking that that would be a helpful thing for the other person to know as well, because sometimes it's just for you to know, not to be inauthentic and hide it, but just because you're never supposed to, in my experience, force your experience on someone else. And if someone else is ready to remember, there will be signs that they will be receptive to that, which don't come from you needing validation for that. But that's one, to make a long story not as long. Random Heart was a movie that I did resonate with a lot and cried a lot, in terms of it can be heavy for you to carry the emotion of being the one who recognizes someone else when they don't recognize you for who you were previously. But it is a teaching tool, to know that you're enough as this version of you, that they may not need that reason of knowing who you were before, and they can love you for who you are now.
And they
But that is a movie
fathom,
that I
but
used.
they may not even be in this life able to fathom
Right.
that because it's not their or they're not there. You know, so you're gonna go up to freak somebody and they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
okay.
And
My
also, it is validation seeking and trauma response seeking, in my opinion. It's not necessarily that um, you don't want and seek to have that person in your life, but if you feel like you need them to recognize that for the relationship to be valid or what you want or need it to be, that's something for you to explore about you. Because if they're already in your life and in your orbit as you are now, that's for a reason. Like, that was already set up. It's for a reason. And it's to teach you to trust that and explore what the relationship is now, and just use the information you have from that previous relationship to make this one better, not what it was, because we can never and are never supposed to have back what it was. It's always about the next evolution.
Times are changed, things are changed.
Yeah, and that's for a reason.
From the turn of the century, when we have cell phones now, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one. And I don't know. When I was younger, I loved to watch Stepmom, and like that was one for me to work through and like crying. But also in that movie, it was very Motown based. Like, they had very positive moments in there, also with singing Motown, and so that one was one for me to tap into my emotions. Interestingly, I have things now that I can't watch at my level of healing because they trigger me and they never did before.
Oh.
Like, I'm sorry, please don't hate me, everybody, but I can't watch all the episodes of Gilmore Girls anymore.
Okay.
Because that was very resonant for me when it first came out. Now, when I've done as much work as I have in the mental health fields and in understanding narcissism and ADHD and these things that I do believe some of the Gilmore Girls struggle with,
yeah,
I watch it and I'm like, oh, I can't watch this episode anymore. It's just too triggering. I'm like, no, all I see is the mental health stuff now, and I can't like enjoy it the same.
Mm-hmm. My big cry movies, and I'll go back to it.
Yeah,
The Color
I was
Purple.
going to ask you, what are yours?
The Color Purple, I love. Not only that, because of the music as well. When they're doing God's trying to tell you something,
Yeah.
and she goes up to him, she goes, "See, Daddy, sinners got sold." Oh my God,
Sinners got sold too. I know.
And then Terms of Endearment.
Yeah.
Specifically when she's talking to her son, and he knows that, she's like, "You be good in the little baby boy." Oh,
yeah.
Lose it. And then, then I have a big glass of water. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, Beaches was another one for me.
Benji.
Yeah.
When Benji's little girlfriend dog gets kicked. Oh, I'm sorry. But those.
What that reminds me, like Bambi is one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one for. I don't know if they have
cartoon ones.
Cartoon ones. I would say initially, like when The Lion King, when Mufasa is on the bottom there. Mufasa, say it again, Mufasa. But no, when he's doing the dying part, that one's really sad.
I love when Rafiki like has to tap Simba on the head and hits him on the head, and he says, "Ow, that hurts." He's like, yes, the past can hurt.
Uh-huh. That's a great scene there. I love those scenes. And so really, somebody wrote something really spiritual, hopefully to get in the minds of kids at that time, because that was really important. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I love to watch kids' movies again now as an adult, and like through that spiritual lens and perspective. And sometimes it's shocking. It's like, oh, that's what you were trying to teach people, and it's like I would prefer that not be in entertainment. But sometimes it's great in terms of seeing the seeds there that will get to continue to positively speak to people. I think the danger now is this new equity thing. The direction that equity is taking is not very authentic, in my opinion. And so I personally think we're going to see sooner rather than later that it's becoming more harmful. And if we're putting in things for equality's sake without the authenticity of well-rounded stories and characterizations about why those things are automatically equal, I think it's going to fall flat and do more harm than good until we come to a better place.
We have to make sure that we keep the old stuff so we understand the journey of why we are here now, and not just why we're here now. That's just the way it is. It doesn't work because kids will tell you there's all kinds of uh, reasons why we need to know that still now.
Yeah.
I thought you got a
Yes, I
wonderful little request.
see. Hi, love. Yes, there is time for a reading. I'm so glad you're here. That's my wonderful friend and client from Kuwait. So
Hi.
it's very, very early in the morning by you, I think. Thank you for coming on. But yes, feel free. Ask anything. You know the drill. So ask anything you like. We're just chatting in the meantime. So anybody that's here, if you have a personalized question, go ahead and ask there in the comment section. You don't need to use any other place. Just regular add a comment, and there's information in the pinned comment to Energy Exchange and donate for your readings as well. Yes, very, very early. I know. She's a trooper.
Good morning.
She's always on.
Good
Yes.
morning.
I I love that. I love that we were talking earlier about how the internet helps us connect with souls that we have connection with from anywhere now, and that's my favorite part. Like, I have people in Dubai and Kuwait and like Australia, and it's just amazing to make connections with people and to be able to also see in terms of energy sending. It means distance means nothing.
One
It
of the
really,
things that we've done is race.
yeah. Okay, so have the question here. Can I ask why my IVF for embryo transfer didn't work? And why, first of all, I'm sorry that it didn't work this time, and why I failed to have a positive pregnancy. I'm so sorry that you're carrying the weight of that emotion, and I hope that some of what we talked about earlier, if you saw it or you watched it on replay, about just allowing yourself without shame to feel whatever you're feeling, that's important. I'm going to tap into and just get you a personalized answer of why it didn't work this time. The first thing is always to assign whenever something didn't work out for you. If you can make assignment, it didn't work out yet, it didn't work out this past time, rather than using language that would continue in it not working out. So we're looking back at this time, this specific transfer that didn't work out, and not needing to allow it to reverberate to future transfers. So for this one, I do feel that there was a young soul that was involved in this transfer that was set up to be your next child, that they knew that it would not work out to completion in that element of transfer for pregnancy. They are a soul that I'm seeing beautiful green and blue teal colored energy around them and their auric field, that they've already selected you as parent. And that can be something helpful to picture so that you're working in a cooperative relationship in bringing them into the world, and it doesn't have to be pressure in terms of just you getting pregnant with them, that you know that they want to experience life. It is a gift to you and to them, and that can help take some of the energetic weight off of allowing the pregnancy to take. But they are a soul that was nervous about coming back into life in this density, and I know you're very familiar with density. So they did kind of dip a toe in terms of allowing transfers to happen before they had a pregnancy with them take. So what can be helpful in terms of future transfers, number one, is going to be first and foremost dealing with the emotions that it brought up within you to clear those so you're not carrying them into future transfers. So you may want to think about how much time you want to allow yourself to process and clear the energy of that transfer before going into the next one. And that can be however long you need it to be or however short you need it to be. That's going to be based on you feeling and working through those emotions and knowing that you don't have to carry them in that area of your body and in that womb area. So that's one thing. Take responsibility for your body, for connecting with your body, for reminding your body that it's okay, that you are understanding and forgiving of yourself and your womb for not bringing that positive pregnancy test this time around. And number two, you can start to work more cooperatively with that soul in terms of them giving the sign, because they can already communicate with you. And I know that you are very adept to working with signs. So they can already start to communicate with you in terms of selecting transfer dates, doctors office locations, etc., when it would be more acceptable for them to work with you from the other side in terms of you bringing them into the world. So it's kind of a dual situation for you in terms of working with your body to prepare and heal your body and not need to carry that in terms of shame or pain or blockage, and working with this soul so that you're doing it together. So that's going to be a little bit of a process, but it is not something that I see your higher self or this soul as blaming you for why it didn't work this time around. I do also feel like it didn't work with that specific embryo because they're showing me that there was something with the sperm that time around that would not have been healthy for that child had that embryo taken and implanted. It's kind of the same as when a pregnancy doesn't work out, and sometimes the body naturally knows that there's such a deformity that it wouldn't be healthy for that body or for that soul to deal with. So I'm not seeing any part of this, not that it's ever anyone's fault, but I'm not seeing any part of this that was your fault. There was something that the doctor didn't notice, didn't check for, etc. There was something degraded about the sperm in that particular embryo, as well as that soul literally is showing me dipping a toe in and then pulling it out like, oh, that density. I don't know if I'm ready for that density yet. And so needing to come in and have that implantation work at a different timeline. So what you can also do is start to talk to the soul of that child and start to kind of coach them from yourself as a mother to them on the other side and say, hey, I know that this density on Earth sucks sometimes. Use your language. I know it's hard. I know it's really intense sometimes, and there are a lot of scary things that could be in this world, but I want to let you know, baby soul, or if you have names that you like, you can use the names also. I'm going to be here for you as mom. I am spiritually inclined. I'm spiritually aware. I'm going to help you deal with things and balance your energy and have a better experience of life this time around than you've had before. And I know you, and I know that you're committed to that for the soul that's coming in. But sometimes when we get in those moments, especially as women, right, where we are trying to bring life in that way and it's very intentional, we stop thinking about that because we think so much about, is this going to work? When is it going to work? And we have the hormones and we have all the things, especially when it's IVF, there's artificial hormones that are kind of amping things up sometimes. And so we don't as often think about as much of that spiritual component because we're thinking and putting so much pressure on the physical component. So I know you're already energetically inclined, but the thought is pull back into just doing energy work, coming to feel whatever you have to feel in terms of acceptance for it not working that time around. The reason was not a karmic fault of yours. From what Spirit is showing me, it really is about that baby soul kind of tipping a toe in and saying, no, that's not exactly the time yet. I wouldn't have the best astrological chart maybe if they were born in that experience. And so it's more about stepping into the place of accepting, I know this is going to happen. I don't know exactly how or exactly when, but I'm willing to be more guided and work cooperatively with that soul, knowing it's not just about me and it's not just about pressure on my doctor or pressure on my body. And let's find the most flowing way, and knowing and trusting that that soul is mine and I am theirs in terms of parent-child, and how and when, the specifics are not necessarily important. And those things get to fill in more. So just take it one step at a time. Doesn't have to be logical steps. Take it one step at a time with things that come up for you. We were talking about sympathetic
magic right before you asked your question and working through emotions. Work through that emotion in ways that are not necessarily directly linked to not having a pregnancy or all of that. Work through you're feeling sadness, you know sadness is stuck somewhere in your chakra system. Allow yourself to feel sadness through a different way and through something that is not directly linked to your experience, and make the intention that, hey, the sadness is so heavy right now. And I know you're saying thank you, you're very welcome. But tell yourself, I know the sadness is so heavy right now. I'm going to work through some of it by feeling sad about this fictional thing and allow some of it to come through me and have the intention that my tears are going to flow and wash some of that heavy energy out and away from me in this way. What you can also do is that embryo did have life to a degree, right? Even though it didn't get to implant and come to full life. And this is not about pro-life or what stage of life, any of that. But it had life to a degree. It was something that was part of you that you helped make. That soul at least dipped a toe in for, even if it was a second, right, before it pulled out and decided a different timeline was best for it. And so you may want to do something that helps you release that sadness by having some kind of ceremony to acknowledge that and to release that and to have your mourning period for what didn't work out. Some people like to release something into a body of water, or to light a candle, or to send a lantern up, or sage, or light a bay leaf, whatever element most speaks to you. It often is water when we're talking about emotion that is loving or sad. Those are often linked to the watery emotion. If it's anger or fear, that's often best used to work with fire. So if it's anger or fear or frustration, you may want to do a release with fire. And you may have anger and fear that is beneath the sadness, and it's okay to have anger and fear, even though you know more logical reasons now from spirit of why that happened in the way that it did this time around. Know that it's okay to be angry at that soul, like, you know, little dude, I'm a little pissed at you for giving me hope and then pulling out and deciding a better time. I trust you, I love you, I accept you, but I'm a little mad, and I'm allowed to be mad, you know, and you can work through that. So what I often do with my energy healing clients is, behind sadness is usually anger, and behind anger is usually sadness. So go back and forth in processing and working through, and then work with the elements if you feel called. And sometimes we balance sadness with fire energy, or we balance with water energy. So see which one calls to you. Spend time with those elements, whether it's in person or through videos. You know, if you can't get out, or if it's not a day where you can get out of bed, pop a video on, light a candle, put a glass of water out. You know, there's so many different things that you can still work with the elements, but that can help you to work with the elements in your system as well. And that can be an element of starting to clear some of the energy. And then if you want to do more energy healing work, you know where to get a hold of me if you want to. No pressure, but if you're feeling called to work through that with someone, you know, we've worked together before and we could do something like that. But it is something that you can do on your own, and understanding that it's not going to be a linear process necessarily in healing or feeling those emotions. And you don't have to work through all of them before you get, excuse me, throat chakra. So you don't have to work through all of them before you get your positive results. Because sometimes when we're spiritually inclined and committed to the healing, as I know you are, we put this pressure on ourselves that says, oh, so I have to do all these things, and it's once I do them, then it gets to work out. But if I don't check them all off my list first, then it won't work out. That's not how it works. That's just what we tell ourselves, and sometimes we block ourselves in terms of thinking that we have to heal everything before we will receive and achieve the things that we're working for. That's not necessarily it. Spirit and higher power and our higher self doesn't want to see that we've done everything perfectly and that we've completed it before they will give us the reward. It's more about the consistency of working through it and knowing that you can get your positive result before you're through processing all these emotions. because you already have the commitment that you will keep processing and clearing them even after you have your next positive result, because you know that that's the right thing to do. And you know that that will make it an easier pregnancy when you have a full-term pregnancy for you and the child, because there won't be those emotional energetics in the way. So these are just things to start now, and know that that positive result can come through at any time, because you're already on this path. You're already on this path of healing those things, so that they don't have to be any sort of blockage to you or to the child. That's what wanted to come through. I also want to grab you I know you love your hieroglyphs, so I'm going to grab you a healing card as well. I know you follow him too, my beautiful friend Marcus at Starseed LightCodes. So these are his healing cards, the Wands of Horus. That he's the one in Egypt right now, Leo, and he's a fellow shaman and a fellow energy healer, and he has created these cards that he sent me from Africa to be a tester on. Yeah, they're really cool, and they have organite in them and different copper and crystal structure. And so these are the cards. You're so welcome. These are the cards that came through for you, my love. So this is the Divine Feminine card. That's a great sign. And this actually, I love how the circle in this, which it's never done this before, but it's speaking to me at this moment for you about the womb state, and about, like, I'm even seeing how this tetrahedron and this triangle is kind of going into the womb for implantation. So this is the Divine Feminine sign. And this is coming in the position to bring energy into you. So this other one here actually is backwards. So this means it's pulling energy out and away. This one came in the position to bring energy to you. So this is bringing more divine feminine energy into you. And it's a sign of healing. And this, which I know you're familiar, is the Djed. So this is the Djed pillar of Osiris, or Osir, and this is in the pulling out position. So this is more pulling out wounded masculine elements. So remember, wounded masculine is also the part of you that says that you have to be the doer. And so because you are doing implantation as well, even if you have a partner that's very active in wanting that with you, you've taken on a big role of doer rather than as much of a role of receiver. And pregnancy is about being receptive, right? It is about being fertile and receptive to the seed. So being in this position, it means that it is stepping in to help pull out some of those belief systems that are oriented in you having to be the doer, which could be blocking you from some elements of your divine feminine receive. And so releasing that pressure and that weight from your shoulders, knowing that you have this soul that wants this and wants life through you just as much as you do, means that you've already taken so many action steps, right? You've taken and laid the groundwork with finding the doctors and making the embryos and doing all those things. What would it be like to take a break and say, I've done everything I need to do. Now I just need to relax and receive and work on myself in terms of my healing, and then allow those next steps to speak to me when it's time to receive them, not when it's time to actively do them. So that's something to consider when considering your next dates around implantation, and all of that is not when you would be actively seeking to do it, more so inviting the energy of when is it best for me to receive that. So it's just a different perspective that will help you be more receptive. I'll hold it up if you want to take a screenshot so that you can work with the energy a little bit more. Oh, it focused for you and everything. And this will be on replay as well. So feel free to come back. I'm going to save this to my IGTV, and you can come back and you can listen to these words and to your message again, and it will speak to you and add healing again whenever you need it. So that's what wanted to come through, and I feel like it lifted some sadness and grief. Remember, we carry sadness and grief most of the time in our lungs. So you may also want to do some breath work, and that will help you work through some emotions. But I feel a difference, so I hope that you're feeling a difference and feeling less sadness. And it doesn't mean that it's not a sad situation. I am so sorry that had to go through it this way, and I just hope that the information really helps you. You got the screenshot. You are so welcome, my love. I'm so glad that you woke up early and that you got on here and that this helped you right when you needed it. But I love the energy of your little baby. So keep me updated because I want to know when the two of you together decide that it's the best time for them, that they're going to be really, really special.
I have to say I'm a little hopeful after that, because what I saw what the first one you said, pointing toward the womb. I definitely saw that, but then I saw, because I'm a boy, probably phallus, and
Yeah.
I thought, oh, well, that's a good sign. Look at the phallus and them together. It's gonna come soon. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah. No, and the Djed pillar is kind of an element of phallus. It's also linked in with some ancient battery type energies, and it's bringing in energy or sending out energy. There's actually a beautiful scepter in Egypt called the Ankh Djed Was. And so that's the one where it's the combination of the Ankh and the Djed is kind of within that top circular version of the Ankh, and then the Was scepter kind of goes through the whole thing. It's so incredibly powerful. Actually, Marcus just got a scepter of it when he was in Egypt, our friend, because Doc knows them as well. But it's just amazing. And it's actually the combination of Divine Mother and Divine Father, because the Ankh can link with Isis or Osset, and then the Djed links with Osiris or Osir. I try to use both the Greek and Kemetic names when I can, so that we tap into all the energy and not just a stagnant portion. But yeah, that's one of my favorite combinations of, combining the beautiful elements of Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine together, and in that kind of powerhouse way.
It's our duality.
Yeah. And both are so necessary, and every soul has both. It's just about the degree to which we allow ourselves to express them and experience them and define them. And often we do have romantic relationships that really come through in teaching us about the one that we have othered within ourselves, or the one that we have wounded within ourselves. So we will have like a divine love type partnership, usually with someone who predominantly carries or forward faces the other frequency. So if we carry a lot of divine feminine, our partner that we're attracted to may carry more divine masculine. And then what often happens with partners who are committed to healing or have that sort of divine relationship is the frequency can swap, in terms of then the other partner will notice, oh, really? I was a divine feminine, I thought, but I had a lot of masculine or wounded masculine within me that I wasn't noticing until I got around my partner. And so, through love, it can be the greatest teacher and the greatest divine mirror for us to understand and encompass both of those energies within ourselves in a really balanced way, and in a way that helps us to understand the creator and how we are part of the creator, which is both, in my experience.
And we're in the image of. Isn't that funny how it all works?
Yeah, it all works out eventually. It all links to something. And even like spirit animals and the way that I do starseed work and stuff, we will find that sometimes we have elements or qualities of those facets of our soul or of our spirit guide or totem guide. And it's like how people start to look like their dogs. Once you know what someone's spirit animal is, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That I recognize that. Like I didn't recognize it as much before. And some people you recognize it right away. It's very apparent. So it's funny how that works. And I think it's all because just the same way angelics or elements of deity can present in any form that we need them to, in any form that we will accept them in, because their energy is malleable, so appearance is malleable based on what we need. I think we come to that place when we accept and heal more of our multidimensionality and more of our multidimensional consciousness, where our look doesn't have to be as concrete, and where people can start to see different things in us based off of what they need or based off of what we need, because it's an illusion. We think physical reality is very concrete, but in my experience, it's much more malleable than we think.
Hmm. Or else we wouldn't be able to change our appearances all the time.
Yeah, and I think some people need more of that appearance change than others, and kind of cement into needing it in a physical way, like through plastic surgery. Not that there's anything wrong with that,
Hmm.
but I think you can see the people that become very attached to that as if it's the solution. And those people often become the people where they can't just stop at one because they're not willing to see that it can be an element of making something part of the solution. But if you're not also looking deeper, it's never going to be the solution for you. There's always going to be something more that you want.
And besides, I mean, we're kind of just really costumes over a bunch of love, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love Hinduism as well, because Hinduism really helps people understand avatars and, one deity that has many avatars
Hmm.
through various lifetimes and presents then under a different name for that specific avatar, but people know and accept it's part of the larger form of deity. And that relates, I think, to helping us understand our reincarnation and our other lives, but also the fact that we're all automatically part of something bigger and something more than can ever be expressed in a single body or in a single lifetime. And now is the fun part, where we haven't really, in my experience, had this opportunity since Lemuria and Atlantis and some of the dynasties of Egypt, where we can express more than one version of ourselves in a lifetime, because we can accept and integrate those things, and it can be very accepted to live kind of multiple lifetimes in one now.
Well, I kind of do actually, and
Yeah,
some people do are able to.
yeah. And it's not for everyone, and that's purposeful because we're all on different paths with different unravelings of our soul growth. But I think even like muggles and normal people have this, where they can look and say, I'm totally different than the person that I was just out of college. Like they can get to an older age and they can realize, people have multiple marriages, people have multiple careers,
Hmm.
even in non-traditional, not spiritual forms. And they can recognize, well, yeah, maybe they did a career until they were 40 years old, and then they made a career swap and had a totally different one. And it is, in essence, like having another entire lifetime, even if they don't spiritually assign it to be that.
Some of us jump back and forth in this between
Yeah.
working with kids and working in hospitality.
Yeah. And
A lot of,
creativity.
and creativity, yeah. Like besides, working with kids and that, and then theatrically or video, it's a cycle. Sometimes this is more, sometimes it's not enough. So you're doing this over here, and sometimes they're all together.
I mean, it always links, and it always links in interesting ways. Like I've spoken to our friend Maria about that in terms of not limiting the self
Hmm.
and the creative elements. I've had a lot of people tell me to niche down and only present like one thing. And spirit just has never been about that with me. Like I create things and I look for different ways to present those creations and trial and error and, you know, experimenting. But to me, writing or making something can be just as spiritual as giving a reading or a healing talk. You
I'm
know,
hear the Danielle singing part.
yes, Leo
Gotta get
called me out.
far.
Leo called me out on singing. I need to probably make more of those. Maybe for the holidays I'll make more. But I enjoy it, and that's part of, like, honestly, that's part of my prep for a lot of raising and clearing or replenishing my energy. Like it's so healing to me. And I've always connected with that. I've been, I've had connections with singers and singing for multiple lifetimes. And it's just something that's very much a part of my soul. It's not something that I've needed to be so much at the forefront this time around, because I enjoy how it is for me. And I enjoy that I can use it to fuel the other things that are very specific and necessary for this lifetime that weren't as necessary in other lifetimes. So it is an element of healing, and it can be healing and inspiring for others. But also I do get to enjoy when it is that for me,
And
you
I've
know?
heard of your scene. You've got some chops there too. So
Thank you. I enjoy it. And it's nourishing to me. And I think I have good taste with the people that that I love in the singing realm. So that helps have some chops.
a Christmas Carol little podcast. Me, you, and Maria, and get the group together, and everybody put their music on, do carols for the night or something.
Yeah, we should do that. Or remember that video I sent you with JoJo and Terrell?
Oh yeah,
With the blue wall in the background. So he does a show where it's basically like song association, where you get a word and then you have to sing it, whatever song comes into your head that has that word in it. So that would be fun to do.
that,
It's hard to like do carols because we're all in different places, it's hard to do harmonies because of the time delay. But maybe something like that with a game for the
or
words
maybe
would be fun.
both. Maybe we have our own. We can play our music back here, and somebody will sing their carol, and then we'll do a little game, and somebody else will sing the carol, and
Yeah.
game. Who knows? With us creatives, we can come up with all kinds of stuff.
Or maybe we'll all be in the same place. We'll see.
That would miss.
Yeah.
My love, I have to go feed my kittens.
I know. Yes, you go, and then I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna be on live for a couple minutes longer, just so I can wrap up the live. I think you
This
have to
full moon's
exit.
been driving them crazy, so they're
And
really.
the eclipse, the lunar eclipse.
Oh, is that going? There's another one coming.
That was this
Yeah,
weekend. It was a full moon with eclipse.
Ooh, well, these girls have been going crazy.
Yeah,
So even
you're beautiful. You're beautiful little kitty.
oh, those are beautiful cards. Now, who did those cards?
So these are art by Susan Seddon-Boulay. They're animal spirits knowledge cards.
Beautiful.
And they're like $10 on Amazon if anyone wants more spirit animal connection. Of course, you could always come to me. I have the mini readings and the journey sessions. But if you want the art, which is why I love cards for the art, those are nice ones.
Can we send me off with the cards since I'm going to say goodbye to you and give you kisses?
Yeah, you want a spirit card, or you want one of the hieroglyphs? Which
I will leave it up to you, my love.
Okay.
What are we?
I feel the healing card for you because those were very calling. Because I know you have your connection too. So, this is interesting. So this is actually the Divine Masculine card, and it is in reverse. So it's pulling, which means it's taking some unhealthy energy out to make way for healthier energy within. So this would be the way of it forward facing. And this, when it's reversed, it's just some lighter coloration, right? And so this would really speak to pulling out any elements of that wounded masculine. So that overdoer energy, what I'm really getting is a sense of obligation and how your higher self right now is working with you to remove some past negative and limiting beliefs around obligatory ways of doing things, feeling like you had to do things in order for them to work, and agreements that you've had with people in terms of you needing to be the doer or the only doer, and your higher self giving you the invitation that it's time for some of that to leave your life, especially as we're in autumn season, which teaches us to release, and Scorpio season, which teaches us to release from, the deepest, darkest layers. I would say see where you have urges and urgency around being obligated or being slated as the one to do it, because that's elements where there's been some resentment breeding behind the scenes that clogs the energy system, and we don't want that to turn to any sickness or anything like that eventually. So work on how you can restructure those beliefs, set different borders and boundaries and paradigms around not needing to feel or act on obligation for obligation's sake, and maybe use your voice to set up different borders and boundaries that allow people to help as well, without needing it to get to a point of you breaking down before you allow and ask for help.
I like that. I can see some signs already that I took this week of that being representative. So
Good.
yeah, where I'm not burdening the whole thing, but trying to delegate.
Yeah. And something that's, because I know this is really hard. Also, if we have any codependency that we're healing, or if we have the wounded healer aspect that tells us we should be the responsible one, something that always helps me to have a reminder is think about it from the higher perspective of the other person. That if we need to say no to someone or something, even if we said yes previously, we are allowing for another opportunity that is beyond what we are capable of giving at that moment, even if we or the other person doesn't see it then. And so when we are saying no to someone, we are saying yes to God, because we are saying, yes, God, do it for them in a better way than I can right now.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's important for me and a lot of people to hear.
Yeah. And it
Thank you, Mike.
can take reminding. It takes a lot of reminding, because we feel obligated. We worry about the other person. We worry about the time frame that it can make sense for the other person. But if we remind ourselves that it's not about letting someone down, it's about giving them an opportunity. By us closing a door, we're allowing them to face the other direction and see what other doors or windows God may be opening up for them.
Because they will be opening.
Yeah. And then if they don't take it, that's up to them. It's not on us, but we gave the opportunity to them and to God to do it in a bigger way than we're capable of then.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful
Thanks
friend.
for inviting me. It was so much fun to hang out with you tonight.
Yes, I always love hanging out with you. And you guys can catch Leo on What's the Story with Maria every Tuesday night at 9, except this Tuesday because it's Halloween.
Right, it's
But
Halloween.
you can watch. Yes, you can watch the replays, and I love to watch them on YouTube, and you'll very often find me there in the comments on the YouTube. So, but there are other places as well. So go and check them out. What's the Story with Maria? Instagram is the fastest way that you could type it in and find both Maria and Leo.
Thank you. And I will see it. I'm sure I'll talk to you probably later on, or if not tomorrow again.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
And blessings to everybody out there. Dr. Zaz, good luck for you and good blessings for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. All right, you guys, I'm going to be on for a couple minutes longer. Thank you, Leo. I'm so happy that he joined us today. It's going to transition back. There we go. Now it's just me for a little while. So I'm going to start to wrap up. It is 11 p.m. here by me. It's after 11 p.m. here by me in New York. But I'm so happy and proud for everyone who came through today. This was a really great chat, so I might save it and re-upload it to my YouTube channel as well, because I know it can be easier to watch replays on there. So if you're watching me from YouTube land, hello. My Chat and Channel Sessions podcast has been on hiatus the past couple of months while I work on getting some other new things updated and together, but stay tuned for the uploading. The new episodes of that will be coming. I'm not sure when, but they will be coming, and it's going to be a little bit more reinvigorated, but you can catch up on the backlog. There are over 60 episodes, dozens and dozens of hours of my podcast on my YouTube channel, which is at D's Enlightened Edits as well, or you may already be on there if you're watching this on replay there. Go to the playlist that is hashtag Chat and Channel Session, and there are timeless topics. You can just scroll and find one that speaks to you. And the newer episodes are also all on streaming. And when the new episodes start uploading again, they will be on streaming and on YouTube, so you can find that pretty much anywhere. But in the meantime, if you would like to explore anything that we've spoken about today, thanks to Leo, we had so many different topics, thanks to Leo and your beautiful questions. So we spoke about so many amazing things. You can join me through reading sessions, and we can get you one-on-one personalized information through Zoom. All of my readings and sessions come with recording now, so I have a couple of mini reading sessions that are more price point accessible. Those are just through recording. And then all of my Zoom sessions also come with recording, so you can tap into that quantum space and listen to your messages again anytime you like. The quantum session, as I said, comes with readings in a mediumistic way for you and your loved ones in spirit, but also even beyond that for your personalized quantum energy field and answers from your spirit guides and higher self. That is the most popular. People like that in a sort of fashion to find out the most type of information. I also have Akashic records and past life readings where we can find the roots of certain patterns that you have in life based on your Akashic record. And I have the spirit animal medicine journey working, where we get you answers and information from your spirit guide teams, as well as take you on a shamanic journey with them. If you would like to go even further than getting your information, you can also use the link that's in my bio and on my website, damseldesigns.com, to apply for quantum consciousness coaching and energy healing with me, where we really deep dive to the roots of your issues or of the things that you want to manifest and help you clear stagnant energy in your bodily and energetic systems. Not a doctor, so it is not equated to that type of healing, but it does help people who are dealing with physical ailments as well in a balanced way as they are working with their physicians. And I've had clients, luckily, all in different areas of the world that have had success. So I would love to work with more of you in that capacity. I only take on a select number of energy healing or consciousness coaching clients per month to have a balanced and dedicated devotion to their energy. So if that's calling to you, you can reach out through that application form, and we will set up a time to talk about building you a custom package and finding the time frame that is best to work with you. So with all that being said, I hope that if you are watching this during Spooky Week, you have a blessed Samhain or Halloween if you celebrate, that you have a lovely All Saints or All Souls or Dia de los Muertos day honoring yourself and your loved ones,